There we go. We're all set. Hello, starting right off. Oh, we already have a chat. Talk about coincidence. For once, I can watch one of your streams live for maybe an hour, but that's still. Oh, hey, good to see you. For those watching the VOD, I just had commented in response to Pantaray. Is it Pantaray or Pantarai? I'm never gonna get the pronunciations right for any of these names. Apologies. But yeah, I just responded. I think like an hour or so ago or whatever. But how funny. I'm glad that you're able to join us for this. Hey guys, how are we all doing? As you can see, I'm feeling a little bit chipper. It's a wonderful time here at the Cathedral of the Deep, where you can find all manner of horrifying monstrosities and hollows. Yeah, doing this without HUD is probably not the smartest thing, so let's fix that. There we go. Oh! Grey Warden, and... Oh. There we go. Oh, nice. Alright. Alrighty. So to recap. Up until this point, we have gone from starting out as a lowly little unkindled, tasked with a mission of finding these Lords of Cinder, who they got woken up for this emergency system to keep the fire going, and they up and left, like the deadbeat dads they are. So, we gotta go out and bring them back, one way or the other. We find ourselves warping into Lothric in the midst of a civil war. This civil war, of course, has many facets to it that aren't immediately obvious to us. But we get some signs as we head down through this extremely religious but militaristic nation over to its front gate. We're then brought down all the way to here, where we're able to get a look at the undead settlement, a town of undead, where all of Lothric's cursed are essentially rolled out and dumped there at the foot. They have their own little community. We see that this place is also beset by civil war, as there's been a giant fanatical uprising from the Cathedral of the Deep's evangelists. So then we head down the road of sacrifices from there in order to go on the route to Aldrich, one of the lords. As we progress through, we come by through Faron, where we get some hints of what's going on with that place, but the main focus that's important to us here is that Faron wanted the Crystal Sage, who was apparently present at Lothric. The Crystal Sage was brought over with Lothric's blessing as part of arrangements that we see between rulers involved with both Aldrich and the Cathedral. And essentially these road of sacrifices facilitated having bearers of the pus and other people who the curse want to get rid of brought down this road through the Crystal Sage's checkpoint, up into the Cathedral, where they would then be sacrificed to Aldrich once upon a time. However, once Aldrich became Lord of Cinder, the horrors he left behind remained. They tried their best in order to get rid of these horrors, but to no avail. Eventually, they ended up adopting those horrors themselves to use against them, kind of a fight fire with fire scenario, except it's more like fight dark with dark. In the end, though, nothing ended up working, in order to preserve their faith. By the time Aldrich comes back to the Cathedral, he's like, well, I want to get back to my man-eating. But then eventually he decides, you know what? Let's start a religion. And we see this new deep faith is born. Now, plot twist, Aldrich wasn't home. He actually went to his old true home, where he was before he got imprisoned here, at Irithyll. So the plot begins opening up, and this little story thread is now put on hold as we make our way back to the Road of Sacrifices and ultimately Faron Keep. Now, the point of me trying to recap all this is simply to let everybody know that we've had a pretty consistent narrative through line. For as much as Dark Souls storytelling is sort of stayed to be obtuse, there is, in fact, a lot of narrative. It just requires a lot more attention to detail, because they're not just info dumping it to you through cutscenes and the like, the same way that you see in many other games. But it is there, and if you're paying attention to items and dialogue and the little things and the environment and stuff, you can get a pretty decent idea of what's going on even if you don't get all the pieces to answer every little question right off the bat. So it's always cool to go through with these. I'm very happy with everyone's feedback. I'm glad you guys are liking these lore throughs. I, for one, am enjoying them as well. There you are, buddy. And I think that it's helping me notice things that I've also not necessarily spotted after all my playthroughs, or at the very least I forget about them. Like, for example, yesterday we had the thing with the exiles. I was like, oh, I don't think I remember them with the miracles and stuff like that. I was like, oh no, that's in my thesis. I just don't remember. So yeah, never feel bad if you feel like you don't remember that super important detail that completely clarified that question you had about the lore. Even people like me who like have been thinking, living, breathing Dark Souls for like years now. It's like, no, it's easy to forget these things. It's a lot to take in and digest, and obviously we all have our own lives and other things that are keeping us distracted. Ember, again, get this association of fire and dark here with all these adherents of the deep who, if you look at the back of their uniforms, should be worshipping flame. Yeah, you can't really. There we go. You kind of see there's a stylized flame on the back there. It's not as visible, but they're worshipping the dark here, the husk of man, the humanity within all of us. But now we get to put that on hold so we can focus on that baby right over there. Terrifying, huh? Thank you for justifying my dumb brain. No problem. Listen, we can all be a little vacuous sometimes. It's okay. It happens. I mean, look at Aldrich. He's so vacuous that he just leaves parts of himself all over. There we go. And just in advance, for anyone who was paying attention, I did get the item that was over on this ledge over here before I started streaming. From that guy. Again, it was just another ember, so I didn't mind looting it. Oh, that was a close call. I almost had a fault for my death at the beginning of the stream again. No. We are not doing one of those today. Let's see. Is there anything we want to do before heading straight to Faron? Well, I guess we can dump another level in here. We got to keep beefing up that intelligence stat. I want the Abyss Watchers to not know what hit them. Now, of course, as we head into Faron, it's important to recall Hawkwood, a character who's clarified that he is a deserter. We can tell from his uniform that he was, in fact, once an Abyss Watcher himself. He also has some chainmail, as we can see here on his head, though, instead of the standard helmet. Seems to have put that iconic symbol of them down. He also uses, I think that's is it Claymore or Zweihander? Might be Claymore, but it doesn't really matter. Point is that he has his normal sword, and if we recall, outside, he laid on one of the graves for the Cemetery of Ash his greatsword, his old Faron greatsword. So, there we go. Intelligence. Perfect. Gotta move on. Okay. And from that greatsword, we're able to also understand that he said from the very beginning, the moment he heard that about the Lords of Cinder and everything that goes on, he's like, okay, so my old buddies are one of the lords, and one emphasis, I guess. And come on, old one, hurry up. And from being one of the lords who absconded, he knows more than anybody. There's no way that we're just gonna be like a lowly, unkindled, pathetic deserter like him is gonna be able to do anything. All right, you. knows that there's no way that he's gonna be able to do anything about it. But he also shows some sense of honor and respect. He puts the sword here doing so, and we see, of course, him at one point kneeling outside of here, kind of giving the respect to his comrades as he kind of acknowledges that, you know, it doesn't really matter what you call them. You can call them heroes when they were Abyss Watchers, or kings now that they're Lords of Cinder. In the end, they're still cursed beings, and they are despised, hated, wretched existences from the nature, constantly in existential crisis. And their only saving grace was that they tried to give themselves a purpose and live for a higher calling, which unfortunately Hawkwood couldn't meet those ideals. So even as he's embittered, and again he's another crestfallen warrior archetype, probably the best of them, he has a lot of conflicting, complicated feelings regarding them, because he puts them on a pedestal even as he sort of puts himself and everyone on his level down, as, oh, it's impossible, we can never achieve those heights. We're about to prove you wrong.
Gaining admission to the Legion is a matter of some ceremony. Inside their keep, snuffing out the flames of 3 altars opens the door to the wolf blood. Even accursed undead want to believe they're special, it seems. I pity the sorry souls.
Now, this has been true since Dark Souls 1. Undead are always trying to find some purpose. That is the idea of the undead, their duty, their mission as undead. They've always become attracted to that. It's been their catnip because, hey, it gives something where there's some purpose to their cursed existence. And for the Abyss Watchers, clearly, they decided we're going to do this. We're going to kind of like pretty up this entire ceremony for us becoming this, these great warriors who are going to battle against the Abyss wherever it is found, and for every Abyss that they slay, their notoriety rises, and from there they're able to kind of really become the they're not just undead now, they're undead heroes, much like undead heroes such as the Chosen Undead in Dark Souls 1, which again, the Chosen Undead is actually there's no character who actually refers to them like that. Well, I may be forgetting like 1 or 2 instances in Dark Souls 1, but there's not, for the most part, Koth and Framp, they don't really call you the Chosen Undead. They're calling you the Undead Hero, Undead Brave, someone who is basically supposed to be the hero of this story. And that's sort of the narrative the god set up in Dark Souls 1, and we can see how the Abyss Watchers are trying to create their own narrative centered around themselves to kind of replicate that fame.
Speak,
anything new?
Honorable Orbeck of Vinheim.
Oh, yeah, we know. Okay, nothing new from you. There's our poor girl. Oh, I mean, our poor book. We'll have our easy read of that later. Let's make sure that we're all good here. No shard. Yes. Anything we want to reinforce here? We want to start getting prepared to get the blessed... Yeah, I get this Reinforced Club blessed, so I'm going to hold off on upgrades. Instead, let's focus on upgrading our flame. Actually, wait. Do I want to do that right now? No, because we're going to be using more sorcery in this area. In fact, on that note, let's get started with Orbeck.
Oh, you're back then. Again, I'm Orbeck of Vinheim, here to teach you sorceries. Let us begin with the basics. The ideal sorcerer bears the twin faces of the dragon. You could at least act as if you're paying attention.
Sorry, I was never good in class.
It is folly to claim lives recklessly, friend. Do not be tempted. No matter the victim's stature, every killing has a consequence. Even as I bloodied my hands, I never realized this simple truth. There I was, the very definition of a fool.
Yes, exactly. We're going to be talking about the specifics of the ceremony when we get through Faron. But yeah, you can see just how much they've put into this idea that they want to they really want to LARP as those who've come before, and it's more than just with Artorias. It's with the just general concept of heroes of legend, especially when it's especially relevant to them as undead. Now, Orbeck, of course, gives us a few important little tidbits here. One, he mentions this idea of two twin faces of the dragon. This is referring to, it's more accurate to say these are more like aspects. So it's like, we can get two rings, of course. It's, I believe, the not the slumbering dragon crest ring, but we have the bellowing dragon crest ring and the, oh, what's it called? The lingering dragon crest ring. Yeah. So then these two rings, the idea is that each one has a sign of an archdragon, and the archdragon is supposed to reflect a different aspect of sorcery of which you will learn. Of course, one ring revolves around you learning patience, to be able to restrain yourself, to kind of be able to know that, okay, you have all this power, but you need to wait and be able to lengthen and kind of like let it play out and work its way through, not just kind of be like all rush, like, you know, like release all your payload all at once. And then you got the idea with of course the bellowing dragon crest ring, which of course represents that there is this power within that sorcerers have, and they can just come bellowing out, right? So there's this huge point that Orbeck's trying to make, is you have to understand these two principles of having the power, but also knowing how to control and make the maximum use of your power. And that it's very impressive how much is being sort of condensed into that brief line, but it's giving us a very real idea of what Vinheim education is at least supposed to be like, what sorcery is like as something in this universe, more than just a sort of a bunch of spells that you buy. What is it like to actually, if we were to actually experience the learning process instead of just seeing the end result after going through all the souls? So in terms of souls, what do we want to we probably want, yeah, we want to get some, probably, can't remember if it's Great Heavy Soul Arrow works best against them, or Heavy Soul Arrow's enough, because I don't remember the resistances. But either way, we'll get the sorceries we need as we get more souls back. We also get an idea, of course, from him is that he's killed before. Orbeck is, of course, not wearing just any uniform. He's wearing the black uniform, similar to the black uniforms that the school used to have students wear them when they were spies or spooks. The point being is that these secret agents of the academy were essentially tasked with performing all sorts of seedy work at high prices, of course. But it was seedy work that basically, of course, naturally involves becoming an assassin at times. In order to maintain, in order for the Dragon School to maintain its supreme authority over the politics in Vinheim, right? Like, you can't have the king having so much power over your school, especially when your school is so critical to the country's politics, culture, economy, and things like that. Well, you want to make sure that you maintain your independence through this, so you don't just become essentially an extension of the state. You want to be the state. We don't need anything with you today, so we can move on from that. Again, as I always say, I can only imagine what it was like when these Abyss Watchers first came in the room. You got like 200 of these guys all cram-packed into this area. Can't even fit them all on the throne. Oh, it must have been quite the sight. There we go. Now, first things first. As I mentioned earlier, well, last stream I should say, the Faron Keep was designed essentially to exist at a lower elevation, so you have these extremely high walls for protection, but then you have the area below these walls even, so that way you're extra safe, which is probably useful because we see that the architecture included high towers and things like that, so you want to make sure they're below the defenses just for practicality's sake. And practical is going to be a word we'll see a lot when it comes to the Abyss Watchers. There's our towers that we have to start worrying about. Like, you can see it, here. These towers are huge, especially because they're on hills. So the lower elevation was definitely needed. But as we were talking about last stream, the crabs here are scavengers. They get rid of all the debris and detritus and all that stuff that might filthy the waters as it flows down here. So instead of forming a valley of defilement, it's this nice clean marshland. Now, the downside to this is that the crabs can't get through solid walls. They can't climb walls. So as a result, there was no way for this ecosystem to spread inside the keep. So in many ways, you could say that the man-made structures pretty much doomed Faron to this fate. once the keep collapsed and no one was taking care of things and managing it, it just allowed the swamp to get out of control, allowed the forest to, again, sort of grow out of control. And though the forest was probably always here to an extent, the corruption of the swamp it exists in as a result ends up turning the trees into entirely different entities. Now, though, as I promise, it's not clickbait. This stream, Miyazaki will in fact come. He has to come. I mean, it's only natural for him to come, and if he doesn't, well, they got pills for that. Let's go this way first. He's gonna see this stream and come right on over. So much coming. Oh. As we mosey our way through this horrible swamp, we see our first notable item in it. Now, this poor sap ended up dying. From what we can tell, much like what we saw outside, he is a pyromancer, but he's a pyromancer of Carmina's school of pyromancies. Specifically, he used iron flesh. Now, iron flesh has sort of fallen out of favor in the Great Swamp since the events of Dark Souls 1. Or maybe it always did, and we just didn't know about it then. But the point is that it's not as popular as it once was. For a good reason, as we can see. It sucks to travel around swampland when you weigh like a giant mass of iron. Especially when it's a poison swamp that is actively killing you as you go through it. You can just imagine, you're just letting all the diseases, all those pathogens, come right in and murder you. He came all over Farky while he designed it. That's why it's so filthy. Yeah, he walked every single square inch. We're all confident of that, right? Miyazaki made sure that he came, he saw, and he poisoned. Anyway, so this is the one of many examples we'll see of how people who've come to the swamp with extremely heavy equipment, they don't make it. And it's probably not a surprise. Now I'm taking this route through the swamp because I very much enjoy torturing myself. We'll also start using embers to see invasions and stuff, because I actually, now that we're past the Hodric part of the game, I'm actually really interested in that. Our first look at Elder Gru. Mind the poison status blocking your way. But as we can see here, there are some of the acolytes have transformed into monstrosities known as the Grus. These Grus, which I believe is a corruption of the term guru, in reference to how they are, they're masters of in magic and all that, for sorcery and that stuff. It's the idea being that these acolytes basically came in and seem to have, unlike the ones who shut themselves in the academy and let the lycanthrope problem basically get handled by all the commoner staff. They basically kind of just shut it in and pretend it didn't exist out of cowardice. We see that these acolytes seem to have actually come within the keep and dealt with the problem directly. We see these flesh which is being burned here, as well as various crucifixes like the ones outside, except they have these monstrous like animal creatures. Again, much like the lycanthropes in some respects, but of course especially relevant to the Grus themselves. And it gives us the idea that, okay, it looks like that the lycanthrope problem has been settled here, but in the course of them desperately trying to contain the issue within the walls of the keep, they allowed the keep itself to be consumed by this rotted forest, which of course brings all manner of diseases and vermin that poisons the swamp and infests the trees here, as you can see from all these almost tumorous pussy sacks. And the Grus themselves slowly transformed into this barbaric tribe. They kind of went primal, in both the mental sense and in the physical sense in that their bodies transformed. Again, this isn't too unusual as a concept. We've seen how bodies can twist with the Corvians earlier in the Road of Sacrifices, so it gives us a lot of reminder of how obsessive devotion and the environment can completely change your physical form, even as human. That's just how curses are. And the strong emotions and desperations and the feelings that they had in this toxic environment clearly caused them to go through a hyper evolution. And we'll see this in some examples. These Elder Grus are likely the original generation that first transformed, and we of course see variations of this translation of this transformation with some of the later generations. Now, let us be focused here. Homeward Bone. Again, we got Homeward Bones up on the ledge that we were on in Faron Keep, so there was always, and we get more of them here, so it's always reminding us of this idea of, there's always this dead end where someone's like, I just want to go home, and it just doesn't work out. Makes sense since the Abyss Watchers are Dex boys. Yeah, they've got everything has to be clean and efficient. Be as skillful as possible. Now, I talked earlier about how we had hints about Catha being the statue up in the cathedral, because we passed by 2 statues of Catha. They were our first clear look at this figure of a woman looking like a holy woman crying into her palm. And then right after that, we found a bunch of 2 coins bearing the feature of an angel. Now, those that followed my work on my website and are perhaps fans of Dark Souls 2 will recall this angelic figure, who is hinted at to be Velka, in connection with how Catha is also hinted to be Velka. So it all sort of ties together here, and we see this reinforced again here. Here's our first look at one of the ceremonial altars. The image, of course, on these altars are the 4 kings of New Londo. And we'll see this with each of the figures here will depict a character who is famous in the story of the Chosen Undead, who, of course, had to kill the 4 bearers of Lord Souls, or Lord Soul Fragments, in order to open the way to link the fire. So, we can see here's the Abyss Watchers. There's the 4 king. I mean, sorry, not the Abyss Watchers. There's the 4 kings of New Londo, and then the little tendrily piece of the abyss at the bottom, much like what can consume you if you don't wear the ring in Dark Souls 1. And now we will extinguish it. So this is a symbolic representation of killing the lords. Again, much like how when you kill, how much flames are sort of treated like souls, especially when you get to the Lord Soul level. We see how we kind of extinguish this flame as if we're taking their soul, taking their lives. And we see how it plays out with this tower that sort of lets all see that, okay, this tower has been gotten rid of. You have performed this part of the ceremony. Anyone in the fort can verify that. And then the corresponding flame will be lit here as a sort of, some sort of mechanism or magic or what have you that'll allow you to open it there. Of course, now giving us a nice little pan over to show that this is our destination, the Faron Mausoleum over there. So that's 1 down. We have the 4 kings of New Londo, and as I said, what do we find right here? Right behind where this 4 kings of New Londo are? Another rusted coin. This time a gold coin, I think. Actually, were the other ones gold coin? I can't recall. But again, if some may recall in Dark Souls 1, Abyssal Archive will go over this, though, explicitly. We see that Velka has a huge influence in New Londo. Her statues are found all over there, and generally speaking, she has a influence in other respects, which again, I'll save that for Abyssal Archive. This is a Dark Souls 3 stream. But point being is that we once again see an association where Miyazaki is using quite the deep lore reference, honestly, because in order to make an allusion to Velka here. It's always funny seeing how that plays out. Now, we're gonna come here. Again, we see this image of the Grus. Now, culturally, the Grus are barbaric, but they have some remnants of their culture. Again, this idea of the moon as this thing which gets rid of evil spirits, especially, namely, dark spirits, but for the Gru, you can't be entirely sure if that's the same thing. But again, we see this idea of they create these totems with the same crescent moon imagery. We also see, of course, that the Grus, they're not only becoming more monstrous physically, but also mentally, as we see some Grus go through degeneration, where they become wild and more manic and just generally more like rabid animals than even barbarians, so to speak, right? So like they're losing more and more of their humanity and civilized minds. Now, fun fact: these enemies internally are known as estrus for Grus. So I don't know. Maybe they're just horny. Oh, that was close. Oh, come on. Come on. Really? 3 times in a row. You are a mean Gru. Oh, die. But as you can see, wild. You don't want to mess with these guys. Oh, I should have used my my ember here. Oh boy. Oh. We're gonna come through this way. Again, let me get a closer look at the these crucifixes. We get an idea of what the Grus have gone to the lengths to essentially defend it. Now, as we can see, they go to extreme levels. It seems that they treat the madness that is afflicting their own kind in the same sense. We always see these monstrous Grus by themselves or in sort of packs among their own kind, like dogs almost. And the obviously, the Grus themselves can't be turning into lycanthropes at this point, so it seems to be this idea that they've essentially associated the original acts of their forebears as just this idea of, oh, it's like this pagan religion where it's like, okay, we do this whenever there's something wrong. So there's something wrong with their brain, they're going crazy, much like how the lycanthropes were, Abyss Watchers going crazy. Okay, then we're just gonna, like, tie you to a crucifix, burn you alive, like, all this stuff. Large soul of a nameless soldier. Alright, where... There we go. Oh, it's only 3. Good. I wonder if I can make it... I should probably take off the Lloyd ring because it's not going to help in this, it's not going to help in this scenario. Though I might have to start turning back and getting back to the bonfire soonish. There we go. As we can see, basilisks are littering this area. This is not surprising. Basilisks have always preferred humid environments outside of unique species that developed in Dark Souls 2. But again, Dark Souls 2 was a unique scenario for the Basilisk, so I don't blame some of them evolving to suit their new environment. But this is more conducive to their habitats. Nice, wet environments. Ugh. Think that covers it? Yeah, nothing else of interest here. Alright, let's see if we can try getting Hazel. The thing about the sound effects with the movement is that I always keep thinking, oh, I'm being chased by something, but no. It's just the puddles. Ew, so gross. See, you can even see how it gets on the rocks and stuff. It's like, yeah, just gross. Oh. Alright, perfect. Let's see if we can get Hazel. Now, we haven't joined Rosaria or anything, so this should still be possible. There we go. There she is. Now, as we see, our good old Yellowfinger. Come on. Come on. Now, Hazel here is a Xanthos scholar. As we learn, unlike, say, the Xanthos King Jeremiah of past games, this time we see how the meme is being kept alive in the form of these Scholars of Ulasil, as if we didn't need any more confirmation that Farum Forest was, in fact, a portion of Darkwood. Oh! I am not getting these timings right. Honestly... Oh, you. Oh, that hit on my, that hit on the rock screwed me over. Okay, that's our first look at Hazel. We'll try again shortly. In the meantime, we also see, of course, how unlike the crabs, slugs can climb walls. So they have no issue coming over here. And they bring all that sludge and rot that you can expect from such vermin. Ragged Mask, again, very fitting for this area, wanting to keep yourself safe from pathogens and stuff of that nature. Again, we can see the pyres that are being lit with the flesh. How such flesh is also left at the feet of these totems with the crucifixes. Oh. Yeah. Can we? Yeah, I think we can do it. Titanite shard. There we go. And as we continue through, we see how this area is at least designed gameplay-wise to be more safe, but it also gives us a better look at some of the ruins here. We can see, again, towering structures, bridges that seem to have helped you get around, and it seems to be that this area was, in fact, designed around the forest and the trees. So that way people could be able to not only see everything from every location and what have you, but also be able to avoid swamps and things like that, so that nature could heal, I guess you could say, even as they disrupted inside of it. Alright. This should be an Estus, yeah. Another Titanite shard. Over there. Not much again to say in this area, because again, it's mostly just slugs. This guy here, some prism stones. He wanted a guidepost to go around, but he's like, well, darn. I'm not getting out of this, am I? I guess I'll die. Poor buddy. Ooh. Okay, here we go. You done? There we go. Again, another body here. This one has a stone parma. As people may recall, this was used by the stone soldiers guarding Drang Lake Castle in Dark Souls 2. Again, another example of stuff, of pieces and parts of Drang Lake, which have clearly found their way here after the drift. So, Drang Lake Castle is evidently no more. It did not survive the warping. Though again, it would be kind of cool if there was a mod that would let us be able to go back to Drang Lake Castle. I don't know. In this, in these lands, that converge around Lombra. I don't know how I healed before the poison got me, but whatever. Now the area does have like a slight green tint, but I wish it was as green as it was in concept art. Like it feels like the green is mostly for the background area, and you don't really notice because everything close by looks so gray. There's some rotten pine resin, unsurprising, considering, well, this. Gosh, you guys aren't even worth it, to be honest. I don't recall. Yeah, there's no item up here. Oh, okay. There is an item over there, though. Now let's handle the Dark Wraith. Dark Wraith comes first. Yeah, Dark Wraith comes first. Now, as we can see here, there is in fact a Dark Wraith. All the way over here in Faron. Like we said before, these Knights of New Londo, now that there's no more New Londo for them to be Knight of, has forced them to drift around. They've survived for so long that the stagnation has seriously affected them, and they're mostly just stragglers. Though we see these Dark Wraiths here have tongues that suggest that they are fingers of Rosaria, much like the Dark Wraith that we saw become a maggot back at the cathedral. Okay, now I can fight it. And it seems that these Dark Wraiths, for obvious reasons, probably have a vendetta against forces that love the gods. No, we're gonna do this the cheesy way. Yeah. That extra intelligence is really showing. Yeah, come here. Oh. And they are probably coming here specifically to have a little bit payback against forces loyal to the gods by saying, hey, you wanna get rid of abysses like Artorias, who was hunting us down out here in the world of man? Like dogs before he kicked the bucket? Well, you know what? We'll make sure that we get our little revenge with you, his descendants. Fresh red eye orbs. There we go. Thank you. There's our Sage's Coal. Now, the Crystal Sage alliance with Faron brought many good things for Faron. For one, it allowed them to train sorcerers in order to function as their Abyss Watchers. So it wasn't just them being a bunch of warriors. They can actually, some of these Abyss Watchers could learn different magical arts. Now, one of the interesting details about the coal, is it here? Oh yeah, here it is. The interesting thing, of course, about this flame is that it's a white flame. Obviously, the association with Seath is relevant, but of course, white flames were previously used in holy magic, and we can see this carry over with how it affects blessed stuff. We also see how it affects the dark infusion, again, much like the occult element, how you made a holy weapon in Dark Souls 1, and then that weapon could then be given that dark power, as if the darkness was feeding on that holiness that already existed in order to sort of give it its strength. We see a similar thing here where this white flame associated with holy power is being used in order to feed a dark infusion when you use gems. Because again, we're not doing the Dark Souls 1 method of imbuing weapons where we directly use the flame per se. We mix the flames being used with these gems, which help us infuse the weapon with that sort of power, right? So we're using like dark gems and things of that nature, and it's like, how do we get these dark gems to work? Okay, well, we need the fire for the heat, but then what if we have this fire also have that holy power so it feeds the dark gem, right? In their defense, the Abyss Watchers are way too extreme. Dark Wraiths come slaughtering all the Abyss Watchers in town, and everyone greets them as heroes. It's like, liberators! It's definitely one of those scenarios where Dark Souls is not not putting anyone in a purely good light here. Now the Undead Legion now have access to this, so it means that, okay, now they can have, even if, say, a sorcerer uses magic, they can still, well, if a Abyss Watcher uses magic, then they can still have crystal weapons on there. Now, the idea that holy flames are being used in order to create crystals for Seath's magic goes all the way back into Dark Souls 1. Abyssal Archive will talk about that as well. But again, it's really neat to see the consistency between FromSoft's games. I think no matter what you want to say about Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, each of the games do amazingly well with trying to keep their lore consistent, despite being something that most people won't notice, and that's always appreciated. As we make our way up here, we're going to be seeing another altar. Now, when we were passing by through the Basilisk area, there was plans for there to be like a fourth altar right beneath the bridge, see where it's destroyed. We saw that a little bit in that one stream with at the Undead Settlement when we first arrived. The point being, of course, is that there was going to be a fourth altar, and that one was going to likely show the image of Seath. Because the Crystal Sage, however, is here, it makes sense that the Abyss Watchers would have removed that altar, as it would have caused incredible religious discord among the Abyss Watcher trainees, because you essentially have these this academy training a bunch of warriors to become essentially worshippers of Logan, and specifically Seath, essentially, ultimately, as the god who Logan was basically prophet of. And that could cause a whole lot of issues when it's like, hey, why are you having me ceremonially kill my god? Like, that's a recipe for trouble. So again, it makes sense that they would remove that altar from the ceremony, because again, it's not needed. You still have the other three altars, which again, one portrays the four kings. This one portrays Izalith. We can see the Witch of Izalith herself here, holding her Lord Soul in the image of a flame. A giant tree behind them, referencing the Bed of Chaos. We also, of course, see the image of 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. You can kind of see 1, 2, 3, 4 witches with holding up staves, much like we see in the cinematic in Dark Souls 1. The idea being is these, of course, are her Daughters of Chaos, the seven who she loves, the seven daughters whom she loves very dearly. Now that these witches are here, let us ceremonially kill them, much like how we killed the four kings. And we can see here how Seath, four kings, Izalith, and then the last would be presumably Nito. There's this idea of, we are going to recreate the legend of the Chosen Undead from Dark Souls 1, your main character, in order to be able to sort of tell this, to sort of kind of show how we, the Abyss Watchers, are also going through a process to heroism in the same manner. Like, we are following that same path. Now, well, I could have swore. There you are. Of course, the Grooge throw shit. Very important detail to know. They throw their own shit. Truly, the heights of barbarity. This is, I think, yeah, rotten pine resin. Did we pass the things that we needed to? No, there's the Abyss Watchers. There may have been an item there, but we'll turn back right now to get a look at it. Not dealing with you. I learned from your brother. This is one of the problems with Farron Swamp. It's not always obvious what items are tucked in what corner. And ironically, by becoming Lords of Cinder, they become Gwyn, the Last Lord. Exactly, right? So there's this idea of, like, again, you can kind of, again, see, they're always chasing this idea of heroism. And the idea that, hey, you want to destroy all the abysses, presumably to preserve the Age of Fire, right? Keep this nice, keep all the Age of the Gods, cherish alive and all that. Well, you know, the best way to do that is to becoming a king of kindling. You know, become fuel for the fire and preserve and help preserve this age eternal. And it's like, wow, you can kind of see how they would really kind of latch on to that idea and be like, yeah, that's sort of like it's the ultimate form of heroism that they can do. And it's not like all of them were going, right? They're going to leave a few of the academy ones behind and things like that, so that way they can continue performing their dues against the Abyss, while part of them would gain the final notoriety as Lords of Cinder, and nothing will possibly go wrong. There we go. Lots of shit throwing today, huh? Purple moss clump. Usually, I very rarely see that, but I got them both to do it, like, pretty much first time. Yeah, we gotta go that way. And again, we see Nito. Our big skeleton boy. A bunch of other skeletons attached. The symbolism is clear. You know the drill. So now, Sans Seath, we have killed all the Lord Soul Bearers. This, of course, lights the last torch and opens the way. And so, much like how lighting adding these Lord Souls to the Lord Vessel bonfire opened the gates to Gwyn and Anor Londo, we see the same thing of opening the path here. Now, this is where we see a transition from a story about the chosen undead into something more akin to Artorias and Sif. Go this way. I could have swore there was, you know, maybe it's like New Game Plus or something that in items here and I'm forgetting. Whatever the case, this is our first example we start seeing of Grus having some sense of civility by wearing clothing. They're just ponchos, but it's something. We see two spear wielders. They act as kind of like guards, or I guess the more accurate term would be an escort to this priest here. Now, we know he's a priest because besides him doing the poison breath attack and him having no horns but all bumps for his head, showing a lot of quote-unquote cerebral matter almost, there's this idea of him having the most clothing, these tattered robes here, and also performing miracles. He performs a basic healing miracle. Now, I'm not going to put too much stock into the miracle using the same stuff as the gods. Maybe some Abyss Watchers were priests before they turned undead and came here. Maybe it's just a case of them reusing assets to show that they have this own like holy magic and things like that. Point is that they basically serve a sort of shamanistic role here, including having their own little talismans made of some of the poison bark. Let's deal with the beauty of a pyromancer. There's the healing magic. I mean, I can do this all day. You can't, buddy. Oh, dang it. The lock-on broke. Well. There we go. Exactly. Abyss Watchers woke up and are like, so, is everything going well with Faron? Everything's going well with Faron, right? It's the Anakin Padme meme. Someone's got to make that. Get Anakin and the Anakin and Padme meme and just like put the Firekeeper as Anakin and Padme, make her the Undead Legion. It'd just be perfect. Alright, so we've got our bonfire here. We got a lot to deal with over there, but we're not gonna deal with this half of the area because we want to focus on what's going on over there in order to get my souls back and fight Hazel. So again, we can see how these slugs are perfectly capable of climbing the walls in order to get in here, where they bred and bred and bred like mad. Apparently the slugs didn't like the crabs. I can't imagine why. It's almost like those giant things would be able to just like pick them up, slice them in half, and chew on their remains. Vermin everywhere. Undead bone shard. Woo! Oh. Ambush! There we go. More poison. I should have rested before we went to Hazel. Oh, it's fine. Well, I guess we can always do Hazel some other... Actually, no, we can rest up there. This is, that's actually might be a good segue. Okay, we'll push a little bit more further. Oh, no, we don't want to deal with the Elder Grew right now. That's going to become a bit of a sticky situation. So let's focus on, over here. Well, there goes the souls. It's only 3k souls, so it's not that bad. But yeah, swamps suck. Miyazaki better be coming right now. He has to see this. He can't be missing this beautiful sight. Death in a swamp. Glorious death in a swamp. Now, we don't need to worry too much about the slugs here. So instead, we'll focus on over here. Now, you may notice this looks a little peculiar. Now, we've seen how these slugs will gather around bodies or corpses and gang up on people. So they will give chase en masse as like almost like a bunch of pack dogs. I don't care about you, go away. But strangely, unlike the slugs, which are kind of lurking here, or they're just kind of wandering in packs earlier in the area, these slugs are just sort of gathered around facing this ladder. Almost as if someone came through there, they were chasing, and then they went up the ladder, and the slugs were like, well, shit. We can climb walls, we can't climb ladders. Oh, that's ugly. So what do you know? It seems like someone recently was in here with us and climbed up this ladder. Maybe we should go in and go up and see how they're doing. Now you can imagine that much like us, okay, swordgrass foreshadowing what's up there. Now you can imagine that anyone who's coming through this swamp and being chased by all these slugs, which are lurking deep into it, is probably got themselves poisoned. And you have no idea if they brought anything to cure it. You hope they do, but if they didn't, oh boy. Regrets will be had. Now before that, let's enjoy our time being poisoned. Ha, funny. Checking out this little corner. Now again, much like an undead settlement, we found this Estus soup, left along with an item with no corpse, telling us the owner at least doesn't seem to be dead. It seems that they left something behind. Now last time it was a Warrior of Sunlight Covenant badge. This time it is a Sunlight Talisman, which of course used to belong to Solaire. Now some have given the thought that maybe this means that Solaire himself is alive, and he is out traveling somewhere. I am not so certain, because I feel like the way Miyazaki likes Solaire's storyline to go, I feel it's more natural for him to have either A, died by the default ending, being consumed by a parasite in Izalith, or of course the quote-unquote happier ending is him going to link the fire of himself and sort of becoming the most literal manifestation of the sun possible, fuel for the first flame. Now, however the scenario plays out, it's obvious that whoever left this talisman behind is a Warrior of Sunlight, and that they went from the undead settlement into Faron Keep, and that they're probably undead considering they're making this Estus soup, and for whatever reason they are on a journey. Now, let's see if we can figure out where the journey goes cold, because I would hate for this to be the last we can possibly learn about this night. This Warrior of the Sun. Anything we want here? There's that item over there. Now we can see the maximum degeneration of the Grus in the form of them becoming basically dogs. And everyone hates Dark Souls dogs, so... You have got to be kidding me. Okay, next level up's going intelligence. I am not going to let that horrible damage number stand. Too early. Well, this is awkward. Where's my Elden Ring jump button? He still managed to become a sort of icon of his covenant somehow. GG some bro. Yeah, this is very true. We see this in Dark Souls 2. Solaire's story is around. So the idea that his talisman might have been picked up by someone who just knows the story of him as a warrior of the sun is not surprising. Again, we see a greatsword, big, heavy weapon. Not very conducive if you want to survive in this giant swamp. You don't want to be fat rolling here, so... Oh, I hate it! I hate it! If I don't know when to swing, just keep swinging till it hits forehead. Now, where are we going from here? You're under me. Can I... plunging you? Nope. Nope, that's gonna get me killed. Didn't really need to use that second Estus, but... Oh! There we go. In fact, with my Undead Bone Shard, we might be able to get, like, a full health out of, Estus now. Alright, but now we may continue. We don't want to deal with these dogs. You continue feeding on the filth here. I, on the other hand, will be heading for safety. Alright, now, like we said earlier, slugs seem to have been chasing someone up here fairly recently. So let's see if we can find that person. Now, obviously, this structure here is one of the supports for the bridge into Lothric. Again, we can see how the Abyss Watchers have a good relationships with Lothric by having a special elevator leading up to the top of the bridge, essentially giving them a shortcut right to the front of the line when it comes to immigration. This, of course, makes sense on multiple levels. Lothric is obviously its own sovereign country, controls the land surrounding it, at least it should. And yet you have this giant fortress being set up literally right at the foot. So, what you gonna do? Well, as we see with Lothric here, they decide, okay, we're going to essentially allow you to exist, we're going to give you these connections, and they kind of basically adopt Lothric as their own, like, undead military unit, right? Like, they can basically do their own thing or whatever, but they gotta help out whenever Lothric wants, right? Like, if they want the crystal, like, we'll give you the crystal sage, but you gotta help us with this road of sacrifices that various interested parties wanna get involved in. Now, imagine our poisoned friend climbing this ladder. He's likely half delirious. He's trying to get away from these threats. He doesn't know how quickly they may be behind him, or if they are behind him. He just sort of runs forward. Well, this is the obvious path here, so he decides he's going to try to run here, maybe try to lose the trail. And then, but he has to eventually make a turn somewhere. So finally, he decides that, okay, things are bad, he's dying, he's on death's doorstep, he doesn't know if he can make it any farther, so he's going to just hide in this alcove here, cast an illusory wall to hide behind it, so that way, hopefully, if they do give chase, they'll just run right by, those damn slugs. Whew! He catches his breath. Now, once he does so, he decides he's going to take a look, see where exactly he ended up, and what do you know? He sees the old Wolf of Faron. Now, this is a very special moment for him, because as we can see, our little slug runner is a dream chaser. There we go. He wanted to join the Undead Legion. That was his dream. And, well, I guess he turned undead, so he got to try to embark on that mission. As we can see in his hand, he has a pendant. I'll be talking more about that later, but the important point here is how he ended up, he basically was aimlessly wandering the rotted forest, and then he ended up finding a quote-unquote new sense of fulfillment, but the idea is that he did find, he did get rewarded for his efforts at the end. As we can see, it literally is quite the end, because as he was trying to climb his way down in order to get closer to his idol, the wolf whose blood will allow him to be an Abyss Watcher, he died. And his body then turned to ash for us to collect. Sad face. Now, there's much more to that story, as we will very soon be showing off. But for now, we get to have a look at the Wolf of Faron. Now, unfortunately, the wolf doesn't have a breathing cycle or anything, but based on item descriptions, he is in fact still alive. He is actively, actively helping the Watchdogs of Faron receive rewards for their service defending the graves. Now, the Watchdogs believe whenever they're going around killing intruders and stuff who would disturb the rest of the Abyss Watchers laying there, they believe that those warriors are communicating through the blood-stained swordgrass. The idea being, of course, is that blood is the medium for the soul. It is essentially, basically, whenever the soul wants to do things through a living body, it produces blood, or even doesn't even have to be a living body. See the Iron Golem in Dark Souls 1. The idea being is that this is a byproduct with which the soul can then circulate through the body, and that's how life is able to work, operate. And so the idea that the blood of the Abyss Watchers buried there might, by their strong feelings of gratitude toward the Watchdogs, get on some of that swordgrass in the area and fly over to them for them to receive after every battle. Yeah, there's some logic to it. Now, is that actually what's happening? Who knows? It could just be, they're bloodying the route, and they're bloodying the enemies, and then that stains on the grass, and the grass naturally goes flying when, the person drops dead and goes with a whoomp, and then it goes flying over, and then they pick it up. Maybe it's just that. But the old wolf at least seems to recognize that blood. So more likely than not, it's legitimate. We can also see here how the old wolf is covered with tons of pieces of the Abyss Watchers. You can see here their helmet stained in the splatter of the abyssal fluids from all their battles and things like that. We can also see some of the Watchdog armor here. So again, more signs of the different exiles and criminals who have tried to turn over a new leaf by serving this poor old wolf. Of course, note the various swords and things. And of course, we see how this wolf is basically positioning himself to defend a grave identical to the grave seen in Dark Souls 1 to Artorias. I'll never forgive From for making the wolf an object. I don't know, it looks very ugly to me, especially since he's supposed to be alive. Yes, I agree. But honestly, we have to understand that the wolf was supposed to be a boss originally. Oops, sorry. Sorry, buddy. Hate to make you bleed like that. But yeah, the point with the wolf was that he was supposed to be a boss. And it seems like they just didn't have the time to... when they scrapped the boss, and with everything else they're obviously doing, they said, you know what, we're gonna cut corners and just get someone to make an object file, pose the model this way, and then we'll call it a day. So yeah, it's disappointing, but hey, you never know. Maybe 10, 20 years time we'll get a Dark Souls 3 remake that'll add all those little features that we want. Very cool. Either way, we can see how the wolf has been emaciated. It's worth note how his sides have been shaved clean, again giving the idea that there was a clear spot where they could go directly to the liver, where liver or the guts or whatever you want to put it, and extract blood out of the wolf and then use that blood in their rituals. There's also the sign, of course, of the armlet there. Now, the Wolf of Faron was, of course, a... There we go. Legion etiquette. Sure, you know what? Let's... Yeah, there's no downside to this, so... We shall join for the Watchdogs of Faron thing. There we go. Now, what we see here is how the wolf has, you reused old memorabilia, like the crest of a wolf that the Abyss Watchers presumably used in order for these watchdogs to now have it. And the idea being is that the wolf looks to be a descendant of Sif. Now, Abyssal Archive will obviously cover Sif and Artorias more in detail, but what we can sort of summarize from the first game is the idea is that Sif was defending his master's grave after everything that had occurred in the events of the DLC and things like that. It was sort of this defend to let him enjoy his final rest without being disturbed or possibly tarnishing his legacy. This has continued for generations, apparently, but even after we killed Sif, apparently Sif had already done the deed and started a family. And as we can see, this idea that likely over the generations, this descendant, this gray wolf, who, again, we will see more hints and evidence how this wolf ties directly back to Sif. It isn't just another wolf who decides to take up the mantle, is trying to defend the grave. Now, unfortunately, as the events of Dark Souls 2 show, with the corrupted sword of Artorias we can acquire there, the grave of Artorias and likely much of what Sif was defending was gone and taken away to another part of the world. And even now that parts of that Ulasilian forest have been moved over to here, whether those are the pieces that went to Dark Souls 2's New World or those that were still left behind in the Old World, either way, it seems that Artorias' grave is long since gone. There's only this monument built to honor its memory. To that end, they all managed to remake it for Elden Ring. Yeah, they remade the boss fight, which is really cool. I can't wait to experience that for myself. Suffice to say, though, that the old Wolf of Faron essentially has been defending the grave all this time, but at a certain point, the wolf said, you know, what am I defending this for? It feels like I'm defending a dead and dying legacy that no one remembers. Maybe we should turn it into a living legacy, and that's when we see the Abyss Watchers come in. These undead, again, tons of drifters who are just coming through. They happen to come through to Faron, and instead of getting killed like all the others before them, the old wolf says, you know what? What if we, like, work something out? And this is where we see the origin of the Abyss Watchers begin. The idea that we can try to restore, we can revive memory of Artorias' legacy. Now, over here we see our second Chaos Demon since the Undead Settlement. This is supposed to be Lothric's Gatekeeper, and you might be thinking, what is a Chaos Demon doing as a Gatekeeper? Well, I'm glad you asked, anonymous viewer. Well, as we can see, this demon is referred to as the Stray Demon. Now, if you recall in Dark Souls 1, the Stray Demon was a very specific enemy you could encounter at the Undead Asylum. Although both it and the Asylum demon's names could basically be interchangeable, because they more or less serve the same purpose. Again, we see the river, which will flow into Irithyll. We can't wait to get there. But the idea, of course, being is that the demons in Dark Souls 1 in the Asylum were essentially replacement wardens to keep the fire linking system going that on behalf of Anor Londo. The reason being that these two Chaos Demons were essentially prisoners of war recaptured by Anor Londo, and then later Gwendolyn deploys them there at the Asylum. We see the same concept brought here, where this Stray Demon so far from home is seemingly another prisoner of war who's essentially shown off as a trophy by acting as the gatekeeper. So everyone knows how big and bad Lothric is. They got a Chaos Demon of big bad Izalith to be their gatekeeper. But now, of course, as we know, the bridge is thrown way off course. Should be like over there, I think. Yeah, that over there. And the actual gateway is now blocked with rubble, so we can't even continue forward if we wanted to. As a result, our poor little gatekeeper friend here is basically just Pavlov's dog his way into continuing doing duty, which serves no purpose. Now, that was a ember I think I just collected, so obviously Chaos Demon with fire. Anyone who comes through here is gonna get burned. So it makes sense to see charred humanity here in large amounts. Now, the Chaos Demon, however, by the time we get here, is no longer doing fiery stuff. I think some of his blood bleeds fire, but otherwise, he's clearly been turning to stone. And his entire body is basically fully rock, and that's mostly what his pyromancies are, and even his soul is affected, as we will see shortly. Great Axe. Great Axes we see used by Lothric soldiers, which makes sense, because Lothric soldiers patrolled here would be doing what they do. And then we got our, we'll see over there that there are more of them. Are we safe? Another Ember. How effective is Pyromancy? Not bad. That was like the first frame of the dodge roll. There was no way. Now, we can force our demon friend here to, we can force our demon friend here to lose his legs and become a crawling mess. Unfortunately, this plan does not really work with a pyromancy build as far as I'm aware. So instead, we're going to let him keep his legs. But it does highlight the fact that his body is simply not in a condition how he is now. The reason for him having such a radical petrification of his body seems to be justified on the fact that, unlike the other instances that we see of people turning to rock, this guy here is far away from home. As a stray demon, he's not close to what's left of the Chaos Flame. That was close. So, because of that, there we go. Perfect. And because of that, the body just seems to be this very fragile state that we just don't see with other Chaos Demons. There we go, and there's the soul of the stray demon. Now, as you can see, compared to the normal soul, this one's a bit paler. It doesn't have as much of that same color, as if the warm flame aspect of it, what little that should be there, has sort of faded away, and especially when you compare it to other Chaos Demons and the orange souls they have. So again, we see this idea of how the fire aspects of the body of this Chaos Demon, which was created by the Flame of Chaos, is in fact sort of fading away as it's separated from the flame it's supposed to be in this stagnant world. Yes, the Chaos Flame is dying more and more. So again, with the Chaos Flame essentially just existing in fragment pieces, and basically on terminal life support essentially. Like there's no saving it, for all intents and purposes. There's a huge issue that the Chaos Demons have to deal with of, okay, we've got to stay close to what we can. But when you're a prisoner of war, and you've been far away from the flame for so long, it only makes sense that eventually the stagnation is going to have a especially radical effect on you. Because you're not tied just to a world connected to flame, you're tied to the Chaos Flame, which is functionally, in a metaphysical sense, its own first flame, as Izalith always wanted. We don't want to go here. Now, again, we saw how the Wyverns earlier on were incredibly hostile to the Hollows of Lothric soldiers. this proves to not be an accident. Dragon Crest Shield. Oh. Hey, buddy. There we go. As we can see, a Dragon Crest Shield used to defend against the Flame of Dragons. A Lightning Spear used in order to shoot down dragons from range, especially when they're flying high above. And we can get the idea that this Wyvern seems to have crash-landed into this broken part of the bridge because he was being hunted down by Lothric soldiers, who unfortunately also lost their lives. As we can see, some of these soldiers, though, did end up turning hollow. They turned undead and hollowed out. Again, as we see in other areas, these soldiers have sort of faded their... Oh. Ooh. There we go. Worth it! All for a heavy joke. Okay, as you can see, much like the hollows we saw up on the high wall, we see how these soldiers are in despair. I mean, naturally, they're essentially stranded on this giant-ass bridge with no way down. No safe way down, at least. And the result is basically them hollowing in despair. Again, we can see how Oseros has already... Oseros has long influenced the soldiers here as they wield the white dragon shields instead of the lion shields. This buddy here decided to become a thief. As we can see here, Unlucky Pilgrim here was just walking along the bridge from checkpoint to checkpoint when the bridge broke right before he made it to Lothric. So, like, all these other guys, they've been coming in and having to stop here because they came after the high wall emerged. But this guy got to experience the high wall happening. Oh, my poor man, my poor mate. Oh, well. That's how it works. Them's the breaks now. We go here to move around. And as for those wondering why Lothric soldiers would be garrisoned here, of course, they're obviously the soldiers that are supposed to be managing the checkpoint, so you have a bunch of soldiers stationed here, so they can overlook what's going on and sort of make sure that, okay, boom, 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 boom. Every checkpoint here makes sure that you're not getting into Lothric that easily. Again, this is the main highway to get in and out. If there are, we assume there probably are other ways. It'd be stupid for them to put all their eggs in one basket of, I hope that town of undead over there never goes hollow and essentially chokes off our trade with the outside world. That would really suck. But so the idea has to be that there probably are other ways, but this is the main highway. This is the way that most people are getting into Lothric. So this is the most accessible way easily. So they have to make sure that this route is safely secure. Where do we go from here? Down. Down. And now that we've defeated good old Stray Demon, we can now dump into our intelligence stat. Again, for those that want an idea of our position, we got the towers, we got the entrance to Faron Keep we took, we got the Crystal Sage's little academy, and then finally Cathedral of the Deep. Now, let us now focus back on our friend the Dream Chaser. As I said before, we have this idea of this man who was going through the swamps of Faron, chasing his dreams of becoming an Abyss Watcher, so he has to find the old wolf. Apparently, our man wasn't exactly prepared for to find that his dreamland is well, it's no more. It's kind of gone. It's now this terrible poison swamp, but still he pushed on. again, he's undead. This is the only thing he has left. He has to find a purpose to his life. This is his dream. This is the only thing that's keeping him going and unhallowed. And at the very least, he got to die finding some modicum of success. Again, though, it's interesting to note that he probably cast this illusory wall. Illusory walls clearly are a very simple form of magic. We see them so oftentimes in so many cultures and so many circumstances. So it's not hard to imagine someone learning this, so much as the fact that we don't usually see many characters that are like warriors with simple magic like this. So it suggests that he has a particular background that would suit someone learning this type of magic that would relate to light and all that. We can go here. Back here. And we go say hi to the handmaid. Now, Granny over here has been a suspicious sort in the case that she digging up bodies in order to give her wares, but she's clearly more than meets the eye by how much status she has, by her fancy chair, these incense, which maybe are used in the rituals she does to derive items from ashes. But ultimately, most important of all, is how she reacts to this ash.
One. How may I be of service?
Before that, she has a lot of items which you can believe she acquired either from her work here or from Lothric government before, obviously, the government collapsed. A lot of that stuff there. She also, of course, adds these items as we get the ash. But what's important here is, of course, Faron Dart. Now, unlike Orbeck, she is a bit more expensive with her Faron Dart, which beyond gameplay purposes tells us that she probably is actually selling a text explaining the sorcery versus a Orbeck who is able to teach it at a more efficient manner, so therefore requires less souls in the learning process compared to having paid this woman to have us self-taught. So there's this idea of, okay, did she collect this from, like, say, people like Hawkwood? Maybe before Faron fell, some of its sorcery was brought over. But of course, it's also made. We also have the idea that it's known far and it's learned far and wide because, you know, it's ease of use. Obviously, once you know there's a concept of a short arrow versus a soul arrow, so it's like, okay, I want a soul short arrow. Okay, well, I just take a soul arrow and I just gotta kind of shrink that down, right? Like, it's not that hard of a concept, and it's a lot. It's obviously the intelligence stat required to use it matches that. It's incredibly easy for even people who might not be necessarily talented sorcerers by default. You know, with just a bare minimum bit of teaching, they can learn the spell. So the fact that she knows this could mean nothing, or it could have deeper implications to her backstory, because as we see here,
Ashen one, what woeful umbral ash is this? This barren dust, stuff of a fool, won't yield aught. Where didst thou happen upon the stuff? Tell me for the sport. Oh yes, I see. Clinging to lofty dreams in this dying world, more's the pity. It must come from one most foolish indeed. Wouldst thou not agree?
Now, Granny here has been incredibly detached from the events that are happening. She sort of treats everything like, you know, it doesn't matter, it's fine, whatever, right? Like, she sort of takes a lot of this stuff in stride. She very much has, she very much doesn't seem to much care for the stakes as much as she's just fulfilling her duty here, because, you know, what else is she gonna do trapped here? Might as well. But it's clear that she has a very, almost like reckless approach to the situation, considering how dire things really are. For at least if she is a faithful servant of the gods, right? So it's interesting to see that these ashes get something out of her. Now she still tries to like sort of downplay it by saying like, oh, you know, these are a fool, they're doing so and all that. And she probably really believes that in some sense, but there's the idea that, you know, she really wants to know. She wants to know the fate of this specific person. And it suggests that she knows this specific person. This is someone who has a deep enough personal connection to her that it makes this crotchety old woman actually care for show the slightest bit of care, I should say, in her life. Now,
Ashen one.
as I mentioned earlier, the ashes portray the hand holding a pendant. Now, if those require in Dark Souls 1, a pendant was a item that we could acquire that didn't really have much of a practical purpose, but it served as a reminder to those who owned one of that they have family back home. Because obviously a pendant, it's something that might have a picture on it or some other type of jewel or gem or something, and it could have some value, and it sort of shows that it's obviously something that you would often receive as a gift, right? As a reminder of someone else, a loved one, a family member, someone you deeply care for. So, for example, in Dark Souls 1, we had Rhea. We know that she had a pendant, and we know that she had a huge, close connection to her family. She was extremely driven by wanting to make specifically the head of her family, her father, the Lee nobleman, happy and satisfied. And there's obviously a huge bit of baggage that came with that. And then we can see, obviously, Manus was another example where he had his own pendant from a loved one, and that played a huge role in him going mad when it was lost and destroyed. So we understand the importance of, as soon as you see a pendant in this game, you understand that it's trying to convey that this was something that symbolizes his close connection to someone. And it may be this very pendant among these ashes that stuck out to the old woman to realize, oh my god, that's this person I know. So, is our dream chaser a family member of hers? Now, earlier, we had Cirrus show up here for seemingly no reason. He just randomly decides to show up. Leonard, we'll know the reason as we continue to press forward. But Cirrus just sort of shows up and says, hey, you know, we're probably not going to have anything to do with each other, so, like, just ignore me. We'll be on our way. Suspicious. And now we have this dream chaser who also sort of has a connection to this granny here. And yet, she won't say much more than that. Now, as we can devise from looking through this guy's items, we can see how... Where is it? We can see that the person used a composite bow, which again is not that unusual, but it does give the idea that this person probably is more than just, like, he's not a hunter. It seems like he's someone who's more skilled, or if he is hunting, he's definitely someone who's more apt to using quick firing. So possibly a soldier. At least someone with some warrior's experience. And then I think we also get the leather armor with this, so it's, again, gives the idea of someone who... Or someone who, well, I may be misremembering. Maybe we get this by default. But the idea is, of course, someone with someone who might be lightly armored, ready to hunt or fight. Feather arrow, same thing, used by hunters for distant targets. Was it? I think the life ring is also something he brings, which would give us an indication of someone who wants to obviously try to stay alive, extend it, live long enough in order to reach some sort of goal. And we do get some poison moss clumps and other stuff related to poison, so apparently our buddy didn't have them on him, though, when he was, when he was poisoned. He must have run out. And obviously, of course, rot of stuff related to the forest and things of that nature. So, assuming I didn't make any mistakes there off the top of my memory, again, forgive me, we get an idea of who this person was. Soldier, warrior, knows the handmaid, is potentially the reason that she acquired a text of Faron Dart. Perhaps it was in order to teach this man who had clearly a fascination with Faron before he died, turned undead, and ended up trying to become a member of the Legion. And now we should really start considering what we're going to do with our souls here. We're going to definitely use quite a few, so... Let's get that over with. First, Reinforced Club. Let us infuse it. We should have a few blessed gems at this point. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Oh, we can't... Oh, I don't have the items I need. Well, darn. I could have swore we had a blessed gem from Cathedral, but I may be misremembering. Maybe it doesn't work with this one? Oh, you know what? I haven't given the coal. That's why. I'm dumb.
What's the Undead Legion doing with a coal such as this? I'd heard one of the Crystal Sages had sided with Farron's Abyss Watchers. I suppose it must be true. You should know, this coal is imbued with magic. First one I've ever seen. Hardly a surprise, is it? I've never been one for books or wise men.
Now, if I recall correctly, he doesn't actually say magic, he says sorcery, because obviously Andre's had quite experience with magical embers as of this game, as we'll see in other instances, but again, I'm going to have to double check on that. Yeah, we want to do that. Yeah, nothing else there. Now we can infuse, so perfect. Now we want to have this ready for Skelly Boys. Force weapon. Yeah, now we're gonna dump it all into this because we're gonna be using a lot of that stuff on. Ooh, are we gonna need? We might need large for our thing, so we'll save that for later because we don't need to max out right now.
I don't want that.
Yeah. I'm not too concerned about my weapon because we're going to be switching it out soon, and we're going to be using magic for this case.
There you are, and I am pleased.
Yeah. We can start giving you pyromancy books.
Yes, here we are. It's been long indeed. With this, I can teach you more sophisticated. Splendid.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Gets to be a teacher. Now, Cornix here is a particularly talented pyromancer. We can see this idea of, where is it? He's been making a habit of restoring older pyromancies that seem to have been lost. If players remember from Dark Souls 1, Fire Surge was one of these pyromancies. We only can learn it in the painting world, in large part because one of these fringe pyromancers was brought in as a prisoner, so it only spread there. And it was this type of thing where it's like, okay, all these arts that can't make it to the Great Swamp and sort of spread are becoming sort of lost knowledge, and Cornix seems to be taking fragments and pieces of that knowledge that's been spread between the events of Dark Souls 2 and 3 now, and sort of recreate them. This one says it's a pyromancy of old. The Japanese clarifies this isn't really. It's actually trying to say the opposite. It's not one of these so this is supposed to be like a bygone pyromancy. It's from an older time, a different time. This one is not one of these. Obviously, we've never seen this spell before. It's a new spell as of Dark Souls 3, but we're giving this idea that, okay, it's not as old as the spell from Dark Souls 1, but it's still a spell that was lost and Cornix has apparently restored. One of the Great Swamp's more advanced spells. Again, gives the idea of the difficulty for these magics, and again shows the talent of Cornix. We also see how the Great Swamp has finally accepted Engi's pyromancy, realizing that, hey, you know what? Exiling a pyromancer for being a quote-unquote heretic, when pyromancers are by their very nature quote-unquote heretics, is kind of hypocritical, isn't it? Yeah, you know, maybe we're kind of being stupid about this. So they finally kind of have a mea culpa moment and decide, okay, we'll accept Engi's pyromancy. But of course they only know poison mist, because toxic mist isn't invented by Engi until he reaches the poison swamp in Blighttown. And then we see again more pyromancies for Carmina stuff. We of course get a new pyromancy. Now the idea here, it's called profuse sweat here, but the idea is like it's like a cold sweat. So you know how like when you're sick, there's the idea of, okay, when you're like suffering from some illness, you suddenly start having a cold sweat. That's the idea here, and that's why it relates to stuff like poison, bleed, frost, curses, things like that. It's like, okay, something bad is happening to my body, something wrong is going to happen with my body, and the idea is that, okay, I then go into a cold sweat, and the idea is that this again, the Japanese literally means like a greasy sweat, hence why we'll see like this yellowish greasy sweat color, in order to reflect again this idea of, okay, this kind of sweat deals with more like illnesses of the type of thing, rather than straight up say like this sweat dealing with just fire, because it's more focused on water. It's a cool little detail. Again, normal stuff that we see for the other things, nothing too crazy.
Do not be gone.
Yes. Vinheim has pretty much is the same as always as far as its curriculum is concerned. We do see some of the spells kind of change to accommodate what's going on in the details of in Vinheim's curriculum now that they're allowing their sorcerers to go out on these kind of field studies to kind of research their own little topics and bring that research back to the school as like their final proof of their graduation. But otherwise, things are mostly the same as they've always been. We see, of course, warriors get used to using great swords made of souls as a kind of a quick alternative to having to use actual weapons, and even soldiers can recognize even warriors can recognize the skill of this, because essentially you have like this weightless blade you can pull out whenever. To be fair, pyromancers in Dark Souls 1 weren't known for their intelligence, lore-wise and gameplay-wise. Yeah. Well, the idea is, of course, that there is like this rational process to pyromancy, which is why intelligence and faith are involved in stats in this game. But yes, the idea is, of course, the same in that they weren't like obviously this hyper intelligent thing, because there was this religious aspect being blended in there. So it wasn't like they're this uber rational things that you'd expect out of Vinheim. Though again, as we can see, even Vinheim, for all its uber rationalism, can be just as dumb because of that uber rationalism, that lack of faith to temper it. So again, the plus and minuses for every culture. Now we see, of course, some regular stuff related to Vinheim sorcerer swordsman, sword sorcerers, or however you want to put it. Spook. We're gonna get the. We are gonna get the ring at some point, so I don't think I really want to get this. Though obviously this spell combines fall control and what was it called, soundless in Dark Souls 1. In order to make one spell, probably for the best from a balancing idea, but again, the same point is being made, how these spells allow Vinheim to basically, I mean, they're specialists, so they're going to need a specialist pay. And then Oral Decoy, this again just makes it more obvious that it's used as a way to help with assassinations and things. Again, the first game sort of hints at this nature, because it's like, oh, it's used by playful sorcerers and doing so, but it has, you know, that special purpose. You can use it as a distraction, and we can kind of see how it's used to help slip past guards or backstab them if needed. Let's get this. We don't need the rest. We
Come
can
again.
Yeah, we got the sorceries we need. Yeah, before I go to... There we go. Thank you. I'm gonna keep dumping into that stat.
Farewell, Ashen One. May the flames guide thee.
It felt more... Yes, there is a immense spirituality when it comes to pyromancers. And that's completely because of... the faith aspect of it. They are a religion and a philosophy being driven, not just sort of a rational science of magic. So it's an interesting idea, because the focus in Dark Souls 1 is because there is a mix of both the sorcerer aspect and the faith aspect coming from the Witches of Izalith. We see how the pyromancers end up just focusing on the experiential level, the pyromancy flame itself. It's not until Dark Souls 3 that they decide to acknowledge that both the faith and intelligence side of their work. Alright, so reinforce a weapon. This time we want to make it... Wait, what? Okay, there we go. Heretic staff. We don't have the souls for that. Okay, we can make ourselves have the souls for that. Alright. Wait, because this gives me Havel's Ring. Oh, no, we're going to get the +3 ring eventually anyway, so. We just got to do Ring City.
Just wasn't neat.
I'm going to regret this, like, 3 streams from now. Just watch. Repair equipment. No. Reinforcement. So, storyteller staff. Yeah, this should be the best one, right? Yeah, it's got the best scaling for this. We're gonna go on... We're gonna need more of these.
Pretty be careful.
Yeah.
Welcome must be very well. Then take no.
Hopefully we'll get enough Titanite shards as we get into the get to the Abyss Watchers boss fight. Now let's actually try the. Actually no, because no, okay. Pyromancy Flame is fine for now. We'll switch out when we get to the fight. Old Wolf of Faron, Keeper Ruins, Crystal Sage, Crucifixion Woods, Halfway Fortress. Let's actually start back from the beginning so we can head towards Hazel's area, because that also lets us go against the Elder Crew. There's a lot going on in this area. And most of it is just traveling a swamp. Now the Elder Grus here are special in that they use a staff of sorts. They take what looks like a white tree from Ulasil. Again, probably might be a case of them being repurposed from another area, but either way, the important part is that this staff might have magic in it, and it has a bunch of skulls and stuff embedded at the bottom, so it's like ripped from the roots, and the stuff that was buried there where the trees started taking root was uprooted with it. The result is that whenever they slam or use these staves, they can call forth the naturally angry spirits that are in there and to attack us. So let's... Oh my god, come close enough for me to use this lock-on. There we go. There we go. One down. Would Ashen Estus taste different from normal Estus? I mean, I imagine so. For at the very least, it's supposed to be cold, right? Because it's supposed to be the idea that while regular Estus is just the warmth of the bonfire in liquid form, the Ashes Estus flask would be that when that Estus goes cold, and as we can see it can kind of crystallize, the ash ends up crystallizing the vessel. So we have to imagine that at the very least, whatever Estus tastes like, it has to taste like that, but a lot colder, maybe more bitter as a result. But again, it's hard to say because we don't really understand what... Oh. Okay, you just killed yourself for me. I'll take that. It's hard to say because we don't get a good idea of it. Also, welcoming Goofy to Grafted. Now, where are we? Titanite Shard? Ooh, 2 of them. I need 2 of them. I need 2 more. Actually, or is it just 1 more? I can't remember how many yeah, I need 2 more. Yeah. There's another one of those. Nameless Night Helm. Again, this was an armor set we could acquire in Darkroot Garden, so it serves as another example of, hey, if you didn't get it already, Faron is in fact Darkroot Garden. Or at least the parts of it that came to Lothric, so it's maybe you can argue it's a mix of both. Anyway, the point is that the two have long since become one. They are synonymous. Let's worry about the big brew up here, because I don't want my Hazel fight to get distracted by a wild maniac. I hate this game. Oh, I really hate this game. He's too fast for my rolls! Whee! Oh well. We got all the items from this part, so we don't have to worry about the Elder Grus this time. And thankfully I didn't waste an ember yet, so... Okay, no item. Thought I saw something in the corner of my eye. Now on the topic of Hazel, as we were saying earlier, she is a Xanthos scholar. These scholars have dedicated their lives in order to understand the secrets of Ulasil. Again, Faron is in fact Ulasil, which is Darkroot. The point being is that this land hides many of the secrets of golden sorcery, and the scholars wish to uncover them all. They wear cloths in the shape of mushrooms in order to honor the mushroom men from which Ulasilian sorcery originates. They consider it, I think it's considered a holy beast if I recall correctly. So there's this idea of sacrality, of course, to their almost like faith-like study of sorcery. There's this, of course, fanatic idea, of course, that they want to... nobody sort of cares or respects the people with the funny hats, so they wear medals and stuff on them to kind of show off, like, hey, look at our accomplishments and all that. The irony being is they don't really accomplish anything. Their research is very much mostly at a standstill. Hazel is perhaps one of the few examples of them actually accomplishing much of anything. Come on. Now, Hazel is wearing a ring to make herself invisible from afar. Again, should be the first hint that she is a finger of Rosaria, besides the name. Aggroing these basilisks was not the best move. Ah, dang. Right before the... Oh, I thought I could do it. That's why free aiming is better. Wait, Ulasil is Darkroot? Yes! I don't know if that's sarcasm or not, but... Yes, Ulasil is Darkroot. More revelations at 8. Alright, this time we're not going to aggro the big scary lizard. Petrifying lizards. On that subject, it's probably worth noting how the basilisks have made their return, but they're as well as the curse mechanic from Dark Souls 1, they've no longer separated a different kind of curse status and a petrification status as separate things. They've made them one again. Again, it's okay for them to be separated from a lore perspective. Again, petrification is still a curse, but it's kind of its own kind of curse, whereas the curse in Dark Souls 2 referred specifically to dark curses and had to deal with our hollowing status, rather than Dark Souls 1's curse status, which was more accurately a death by curse status. The idea being, of course, is when you were killed by the petrification curse, it would have lingering effects. Now, Miyazaki wanted curses to be something special, so he tried to reflect how curses eat away at the core of existence, are incredibly difficult to deal with because of what's it called? The fact that they had your life power, your life force. That was the way to show that you were drained by having your HP. The problem with this is that petrification turns you to stone. So if you're a stone statue, how are you going to get your stone statue status cured? It created a very odd case where you had a bunch of different gameplay elements trying to reflect different lore ideas, but they wouldn't actually work that way in practice. And Dark Souls 3 sort of acknowledges that by having it where if you get cursed in this game, it pretends it never happened. You turned into a stone statue, then we rewind time and act like, yeah, that never happened. You're okay. Oh. Come on. Oh, you. I should have seen that coming. There we go. See? Easy, girl. Hazel has died. Now, I think we should still be able to summon Hazel for later, so... Oh. Hazel will have her own little bow and everything. She's supposed to be the friendly member of the Fingers. It also gives us a hint of how Hazel, despite being a sorcerer, she's also a lonely person who seeks companionship. And after all, what's the point of massive discoveries and the strides of long-lost research into sorcery if you have no one to share it with? And that will become a huge part of Hazel's character arc going forward. Finally, revenge, yes. Basically, the player being cursed is never canon. Okay, the way the character being cursed is never canon, right? Like, canonicity with your player character is always hard, right? Because Dark Souls 3 will show several things which you can connect if you assume that a character didn't pick up this item or didn't kill this boss, right? It's one of those things where everything's kind of in flux, right? And it's kind of like stuff isn't necessarily confirmed until a later game more or less requires it to be interpreted that way. Then why is King Jeremiah's Xanthos crown rounded at the top? Because Xanthos King Jeremiah is completely separate. Now, I've talked about this on podcasts in the past with like Sinclair lore and stuff, and you will see this if you buy Abyssal Archive and read into the information there. But the short version is that Jeremiah is the king of Izalith, right? He uses Chaos Pyromancies, King not Schwip and stuff that works for like naked demons and things like that. Like everything lines up where if you're a king with Chaos Pyromancy, then you're obviously supposed to be the king of Izalith. Xanthos isn't a place; it's just a fancy word for yellow. He's supposed to be the king of yellow, in obvious reference to again Lovecraft, who has the famous figure, the King in Yellow. So like, there's this huge idea of a mimetic reference going through, and the idea with Jeremiah is underneath his head wrap is this deformed head, likely resulting from a demon parasite, like those we see in Dark Souls 1. So the idea is that Jeremiah is a demon, and he sort of hides it. There we go, repair powder. Through using the yellow head wrapping. This is also why when we see copycats of him in Dark Souls 2, when they do the head wrap, it doesn't have the extremely long quote-unquote neck portion. It's just the bulbous head portion right after there, because obviously that's a normal human, so they're not going to be able to replicate that thing in the same manner. So, can't replicate long demon neck head thing. Now, we just received repair powder. Repair powder and such are, of course, associated with Ulasil, and it gives us the idea that these are gold dusts that could be found. We just found Hazel invading us in this area, so again, all the associations set us up for this moment. Now, if you recognize this character from Dark Souls 1 DLC, it is Elizabeth, or at least should be. We see pots here, giving indication of someone again. I talked about in a past stream, pots are used to indicate activity. They show that people come around, they're moving around, they're bringing in pots, they're taking out pots, they're using pots for examples, right? So this stuff gives the idea that someone is living here. They have these containers and things that they would use to store stuff, or like water or food or just random items and things of that nature. We now find Elizabeth, who of course is closely associated with Dusk, and so we would assume that this figure hunched over here is Dusk. We see this chest has already been opened, so we can presume that Dusk came in here, took the item, and then sort of kneeled over to her friend Elizabeth before they both met their end. Dusk's survival isn't surprising. Dark Souls 1 implies that she is in fact undead, like most other characters in Dark Souls 1. So the fact that she survived this long in the forest of Ulasil, despite everything that's happened, is perfectly feasible. It's clear that she wanted to just sort of let her civilization die and sort of live with what remnants of its culture could be preserved and remembered by herself, such as this golden scroll. Now this comes where we have our first... So this is where Miss Liz ended up. Yeah. So what ended up happening is the with Dusk here is that she took this scroll out of the chest, it would seem like. But the description is a bit weird. Oh, I keep messing this up because of the... There we go. Because I keep forgetting that general items and key items are earlier on. Here you notice how it says, a golden scroll chronicling the vast research of the Xanthos scholars. The Japanese is the same here, so this isn't a localization error. But there is a problem where it doesn't really make much sense, considering what we see of what the Xanthos scholars have accomplished. They don't even know these basic spells. Orbeck even lampshades this by pointing out how they would salivate if they could see this scroll. It's also very clearly, just from looking at the scroll, it has gold dust on it, it's of high quality paper, looks older and stuff. It's just very clearly old Ulicilian scrolls. It isn't something that the Xanthos scholars found and compiled. And Dusk has been keeping it here. So it's very clear we see this case of, likely, again, one of many typos that you will find in Dark Souls 3 script. We'll find more as we get into Karthus and stuff like that. But it's one of those unfortunate little details that gets in the way of analysis. But thankfully, we have the environmental storytelling to not leave us totally confused. The other chest, of course, has Dusk's clothes. Again, she's obviously living in a swamp, especially now that it's a poison swamp. It doesn't make much sense for her to wear her fancy attire in this swamp, so may as well just strip down to her skivvies and sort of live the wildlife as it goes, right? We also see here how there are these golden glowing colored rocks in the earth here. So it gives us the idea that someone could expose this rock and start mining it for the gold dust that is, of course, so desired. Again, we saw this gold dust right outside here. So it definitely all sort of comes together to give us the idea that Xanthos scholars may have come to meet Dusk, but she hid their secrets here. Again, one of the sorceries we learned from this scroll is, in fact, one of the secret arts of Ulasil, a very dangerous spell that Dusk obviously wouldn't want ordinary men to be learning. So if they figure out that she's Ulicilian or the Ulicilian princess and she wants to learn stuff from them, she might teach them, like, you know, her harmless, like, chameleon spell or, like, her mimicry spell and stuff like that. Like, stuff that isn't going to harm anybody. But she wants to keep all the good stuff away. All the stuff that could be used for violent means or, if screwed up, could cause irreparable damage. Faron equals Ulasil equals Darkroot. Yeah, welcome to stagnation. Yeah. Where are we going from here? We have some items up here, but I'm not too concerned with that. We do have enough for another level up now. Oh! Oh! I forgot about you! You legit slipped my mind. Listen, buddy. We don't need to kill each other. Back away. Oh. Now, I don't think I've gotten enough Titanite yet. Nope, I still have those two, so. Still on the search for better Titanite. Now, I think we can start handling this left section over here. Yeah, especially now that I got that. So let's heal. And actually swap out and test out our sorcery. Let's see if this pyromancer learns a few new tricks. What do we want? Great soul arrow. Let's test the strongest one. And then, yeah, we don't need to worry about that. Yeah, everything should be good as long as we. What's down here? Heretic staff. There we go. Perfect. This is where the fun begins. Boop. Titanite shard. Good. We need one of those. Slow but powerful. So yeah, the I think the intelligence dump was worth it. Now the problem is going to be, how's it going to handle Krabby Boy over here? In fact, this is a good time to mention, if we're not going to be attacked by anything, is our giant friend going to get involved? Now, if you guys may notice, we have one giant crab here. Now, he's giant, which tells us he's old, which means he's probably been here for a while. Likely, he's been here since before the walls of Faron went up. Ah, darn. Our crab boy here has likely been here since before the walls of Faron went up, which explains how he got inside, whereas all his brothers, other brothers didn't. The crab is Artorias. You a Demon Titanite guy or a Titanite Scale guy? I am a Demon Titanite guy, for sure. I much prefer the Titanite Demons. I mean, I like the... Don't get me wrong. I really like the design of the ravenous crystal lizards and all that. I just like their overall shtick, and I think as an enemy, I like them better. But there's something iconic about the Titanite Demons that I feel just makes them unforgettable enemies. Let's try to not lose 20,000 souls. I hear ya. Thank God you whiffed. Now you want to stay near the tree so our giant friend can help us. Now, as I was saying, the giant crab here, before he decided to get physical, seems to have come in as a tiny crab. He grew up, became a big crab after the walls were shown up, so that's why he's been around for so long, staying here. And he seems to be the reason why this last Ulasil tree from Dusk's staff seems to be in pretty good shape, all things considered. It's not so severely poisoned and everything. So we can thank this guy for keeping the tree clean. Now, why he likes the tree, who knows? Maybe, maybe there's something attractive about a magic tree that makes it want to eat it from it and keep it clean. Thank you for your service, Krabby Boy. Now, the Krabby has give us the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring, which again reminds us of Vinheim Sorcerers. Of course, naturally, a Vinheim Sorcerer want to study a White Tree of Ulasil. But unfortunately for him, the crab was its guardian, and ate him. Yes, exactly. Now, this is actually the key that helped me realize this, because I didn't know about crabs and scavenging and all that. Like, I'm not a zoologist. I don't know all this stuff. What I do know, though, is that when I see an enemy that has a particular poison resistance, just for this area and not for any other iteration of that enemy in other areas, it's something to start considering. Why does it have a poison? Why did it build up a poison resistance? Well, because it eats all the poisonous materials that could build up in these swamps, which allows it to have that resistance not only live in, say, a poison swamp, if there ever was one, but also gives us the hint that, oh, okay, it's eating all that hazardous material that would create a poison swamp in the first place. So, again, very cool how all this little stuff on the ecosystem plays out to be explained in the lore. Again, we get a Ember, Golden Pine bundle, because again, Ulasil. Not gonna risk you. Another Traveler. Of course, you get the magic ring from the crab. I love this game. Exactly, right? Like, again, I think Dark Souls where Dark Souls 3 excels is the environmental storytelling details. They really took, despite all the problems the game might this game might have had in development or what have you, they really were able to create some really detailed and interesting storytelling. Crown of Dusk. So we have this idea that Dusk left her crown here. I can't remember, but if I recall correctly, we do confirm that there is no corpse down here, but don't quote me on that. I may be misremembering. Either way, the crown has clearly been left here by the tree. So sort of this idea of she's leaving behind her role as a princess with her culture, and then she went over to live in a cave. Now, we don't know if Dusk was a known factor to the Abyss Watchers, or if she was living out of sight, out of mind when Farn was still around. It's hard to say, because Farn seems to have just set up the fortress amongst the trees so as to not disturb nature, probably to satiate the old wolf's preferences as well. Get the Fallen Knight set to become the coolest guy around. I already have the Fallen Knight set, so I can accommodate you. Where is the? Did I pass it? Oh, I'm not. I should not be looking at the avatars. I should be reading the name, shouldn't I? Yes. Actually, what's my equipment? Oh yeah, we're a little over encumbered, so we're not using shields, so shields are for wusses. Now, here's another scene where we get another instance of, hey, if only we got here like 5 minutes sooner, we could have maybe prevented this. As we can see, the Grus here had just gotten done with killing a bunch of the Mushroom Men from Dark Souls 1. And now they're kind of camping on their corpses, being like, okay, time to rest, boys. We did our random murder on people who infringe on our territory, despite them being natives who predate us for the day. As we can see, these Mushroom Men have pots around them, much like with Dusk. So again, this idea that there is activity. And obviously, they're Mushroom Men. They don't normally have a quote-unquote civilization like humans do. So there's this idea this is specifically activity and interactions with humans. And what do we know? We see a corpse laying on one of them as if trying to defend them. Oh. Ooh. I might want that shield suddenly. Dead. Alright. So there is this idea that there are humans that were interacting with them, and then they were besieged upon by the Grus, who then mercilessly killed them, whether they were human or Mushroom Men. Yes, don't rise the shield. The shield must be kept down, never block. Always make my life easier. Yeah, that was what I was afraid of. But you're not gonna live long enough for it to matter. Or honestly, I have no sympathy. This enemy, listen, just because I killed a few of your kids, you punched me hard. Never forgive. Now, as we can see, this person is kind of leaning on them as if trying to defend them with their last breath. Aw, that's sad. I love the hyper-punching mushrooms. Oh, we have dispute here. The love versus the hate. I wonder which the chat would decide. And as we can see, this corpse here has the Sage's Scroll. Now, as we're told... Yeah, keys. The Sage's Scroll, the Sage's Scroll was given so that way it could nurture a very special talent. Now, we learned that this talent is Hazel. The Crystal Sage basically started refining some more advanced versions of sorcery for Hazel specifically to learn because she was this very talented. Now, an often forgotten element of being undead is the fact that you're still human. You're called undead, but it's not like you are a walking corpse like the dead that Nito holds domain over. You are basically human, but you have this curse where you can't die. Every time you try to die, you come back. The only mitigating factor that kind of makes you corpsey is when you hollow. You kind of start rotting and your body kind of gets aged and saggy and all that stuff, right? So the underlying purpose is that the undead curse makes you no different. You can eat like a regular human. You can drink like a regular human. You can sleep like a regular human. You can even, as we see in Undead Burg with its giant sewer system, defecate like an ordinary human. The only thing that really makes you that different is the hollowing. So this, of course, means that you can also naturally have sex like an ordinary human. Now, it's obviously, with the constant threat of you going crazy, undead don't often get the chance to procreate. But we do see instances where when undead form their own civilization society, they can in fact birth their own children. Again, recall back in an earlier stream how the idea that Grey Rat was married to Loretta, and he called her Mom because they at one point had a child, whose small bone she seems to have still kept clutched into her hand to her last breath because she truly loved that child. What killed the baby, we may never know, but it's very easy to imagine that a bunch of poor people living in this settlement, it's a peaceful place, so of course naturally they're maybe going to get down and dirty at some point. But it's a hard life, and it's very easy to imagine a child dying young there. Yes, like the Undead Burg in Dark Souls 1, you can see huge societies where they're able to try to live like normal quote-unquote lives. New Londo is another example. We see the ghosts of the New Londo citizens, the female ghosts, hold corpses of their babies, not like ghost things, actual living bodies of flesh that they're holding. So the idea is that, of course, again, they had children. Those children do not have the undead curse, so they could have grown up and been normal. So the idea would be Hazel has a parent who was the leader of the Acolytes, and this parent, who we'll assume he, for the sake of simplicity, let's say her father, her daddy was like, hey, Crystal Sage, my daughter is really talented at sorcery. And Crystal Sage looks at her and goes, oh my god, she's really talented at sorcery. Now I am the Crystal Sage. I love nurturing talent. I want everybody to learn sorcery, especially when it has to do with my religion. So I am going to refine sorceries just for your daughter. So obviously, you have this young little girl. She's, you know, a kid. She's gonna probably, like, drop it in a pyre or something. So you're gonna give the scroll to the dad, and he has custody of it, so he can then teach the spells to her, or act as a proxy. So that way, you know, nothing bad's gonna happen to it or anything, instead of having the little gremlin go off on her own. But there is this idea, of course, that Hazel was a young child. She grew up. She is likely, if she is undead now, it would have to be due to entirely separate circumstances to how she was when she was first born in the at the Foreign Sages Academy. Now, her and Daddy clearly both became Xanthos scholars, and he was in the middle of some relations with the Mushroom Men when the Grus finally killed him. Hazel likely doesn't know this yet, because obviously it's her dad, and she seems to act like nothing's wrong. But we'll see how that changes as things progress. Or Londor in this game. Yes, Londor is another example. We don't, again, though, see much in ways of procreation, because, again, it's a bunch of hollows and stuff like that. And the focus is much more on other aspects of Londor, which are more important to the lore than whether or not they're having kids. Plus, a lot of the hollows there are old people. And do you really want to imagine a bunch of old people doing the deed? I don't think so. But hey, whatever suits your kink. Anyway, so we get this little vignette here about Hazel just lost possibly her last and only parent that she had. We don't know what happened to the mom here, though there may be some hints as we continue to press forward. And you can already imagine how devastated that she might be when she figures out that she's now well and truly alone in this place. Because as we can see, there doesn't seem to be many Xanthos scholars left. Ah, dang it. I thought I was close enough. Alright. Let's at least kill one of these guys. Get it off, get it off. I could have swore I should have received an item there. Or maybe it's... oh no, it's the item they're surrounded by, maybe. And I'm forgetting. Or maybe you have to kill them all. Gosh. Memory. We don't have anything for restoring FP, right? So... I can try to just do this manually. I'm just gonna have to avoid the Dark Wraith. Yeah, I can do it here as long as it's, burst it out. Oh, that damage. That damage. Alright, we're gonna need more, flasks for this, so let's actually go back, have Andre adjust our Estus flask, and we can regroup. We might even get to see a few NPCs spawning in, so we can start doing, some really important, plot continuation. Here we go. Alright, so once we give Handmaid her, the ashes of what's potentially a loved one that she knew intimately, we, of course, see Cirrus again. And Cirrus has this very interesting line.
Hello again. I have since heard a great deal about you. For one, that you are most gentle of heart. I, too, am bound by duty, but can offer you my sign. I hear that cordial intrusion lays the path to embers. If I can be of help, by all means, do call upon me. Blessing of the moon upon your journey.
Again, confirmation she's a Dark Moon Knight, or at least once was, as she says. She's a former servant of the divinity.
If you should acquire a blessing of the moon.
Okay. Now, a few things to note about this. One, she talks about how we're gentle. Again, considering the timing, it's very clear it's referring to how we were able to give the handmaid some closure with this person who she didn't know the fate of, but now she knows is dead and is able to come to terms with that. We also have this idea that she mentions the idea of this cordial intrusion. Now, I think the localization differs it between the two, but this is the same phrase that the granny here actually mentions when referring to the idea that, hey, you can buy a soapstone from me, and with that soapstone you can start, doing cooperative play things, and then you can get embers from out of that. And she's obviously she's clearly heard the same phrase from the handmaid. So again, there's this idea that these two are closely connected. Now, as we eventually learn, the Shrine Handmaid is the grandmother to Cirrus. And considering the situation, it's a very good chance that Cirrus's father is the warrior who went off to become the Dream Chaser. It's not even called Sunless Realm. That's the problem. It's called Sunless Realms, plural, which makes no sense whatsoever. Like I said, the Japanese is just, the country of Nightfall. You can also, translate Nightfall as, twilight or sunset or something, but again, the point is that the underlying term refers to the latest stages in the twilight, which would again be nightfall, right when the sun goes down and the night starts coming in, which again perfectly fits the image of the dark moon as this crescent which is about to lose all its light and become a fully black dark moon, quote unquote, right? So again, it's a very bizarre decision on the localization's part. Do we need anything besides the Estus? No.
Just good, wasn't he?
Let's see. A lot Estus. Let's do 3. I think that should be more than enough. Yeah. Anything we want from Orbeck? No, and I don't think we have... Yeah, we have souls, actually, to get stuff, but nah. We don't need anything. Our concern should be chiefly, worrying about what's going on with, with my souls. This is Miyazaki being allergic to being clear. Yes, as for the actual term of referring to it as the Sunless Realms, yeah, I think this is a case of Miyazaki legitimately, he wants to name drop Irithyll as little as possible before before you get the big plot twist with Aldrich. Yeah, it's a very weird case. Like, we only get, like, I think, like, 2 instances of Irithyll. The Irithyll Straight Sword, which technically doesn't even clarify that Irithyll is a country or not. Yeah, where is that thing? Yeah, see? Because it just mentions the Boreal Valley in the actual description. So there's no direct connection between what an Irithyll is in relation to the Boreal Valley. And we see the same thing with Irithyll's sign, where it's sort of like just kind of mentioned, like, you know, the sign of Irithyll. You think, okay, well, maybe that refers to a country, but in the description, all it does is refer to the Boreal Valley. So there seems to be this strange idea he has where he's just going to not clarify that detail. And I'm not entirely certain as to why from a narrative front. Like, I get the idea, but I'm not sure if it has the effect he would think so. So I'm not even... So, which makes me somewhat skeptical of that. Is that, like, is that really it? Is that really what he was... What the plan was? Gotta be careful. There we go. Don't... 20k souls on the line. But hey, it is what it is. We can still infer all the necessary bits to understand what it really means. And you know, what is Dark Souls if it isn't a little oblique? That's what we all love about the storytelling. So, let me make sure that I have a room to back up. Yeah, the biggest fear would be this guy possibly getting in the way. Alright. Potential threat in the future dealt with. Now we can freely backstep. Oh, come on. That's cheating. I was nowhere near that close. What are you doing, game? Thank God ah, damn it. Oh. Got one more before I gotta refill, so. Oh my God. Lock on, please. Oh. I need to get Seagrow off of my hotbar, because that's gonna kill me. That's totally gonna get me killed. Oh boy, this is lock on, please. Ooh, Baron's bow. Oh, I mean, sorry, Ferris's bow. We will talk about the lore significance of that in a second. Phew! Varys's hat, and then an ember. Woo boy! Again, demonstrating how we get embers from stronger enemies in each area, because the idea is that the warmth of their souls is able to even warm the humanity that they may have collected as former humans. There's our last boy. But let's first deal with the Ferris revelations. Ferris was, of course, a hunter who we could encounter in Dark Souls 1. You may not have noticed because in Dark Souls 1 she was referred to as a he, but she is in fact the female hunter that we encounter as part of the Forest Hunters Covenant. You see her right next to a knight who actually has a name. Abyssal Archive will actually go into that character as well. It's a funny little detail there. But the idea being is that Ferris was, of course, in Darkroot, and so naturally we can find her here in Faron. It's no surprise. Die. I'm tired of you. Of course, there we go. And then we see that these Grus had just gotten done killing a poor guy with a poison gem. Like, dude, you didn't have anything on him. Why'd you gotta do that? And we got some Estus to spare. We have plenty of souls. I shouldn't press my luck, but I'm going to. I should just move right along, get my level ups in, before we go have fun, ruining the Abyss Watcher's day. But yeah, let's at least get to the perimeter. If you guys remember me missing any areas, feel free to remind me, because I think I covered this place so thoroughly. Like, holy crap, this has been a long stream. As we enter, as I said before, we can see how the Legend of the Chosen Undead now molds into something more akin to what we see with Sif. We see all these blades of warriors past who have been on our journey before, really sort of adding ceremony when you add in all the candles. Also, who the hell is placing and lighting all these candles? Miyazaki, I get you have a love for candle work in this game, but please, it makes the lore enthusiast in my brain tremble. We see more Corvians like we saw earlier in the Road of Sacrifices. They're being administered by this storyteller. So same as always. Again, another Shriving Stone. This idea that they are casting off their humanity like a husk and becoming crowmen of Velka. I think their days might have been ruined already. Okay, yeah, you got me there. That's very true. Let's have some more fun with sorcery. I do miss the ability to move in, like in Elden Ring. Not because it actually does anything, really, but because it feels nice. You have got to be kidding me. Frada. Yes, be spooked. Alright, that's one. Geronimo! Suffer. You deserve this. But as we can see, the idea is that the heretical storyteller's up here, and they would normally just listen. Now, of course, Dark Souls has never been the best when it comes to simulating events happening in quote-unquote real time, due to the nature of its gameplay. So instead, we kind of have these enemies who are just listening to no one, preaching to them nothing. Unfortunate little hiccup to the narrative storytelling, but it gets the effect done, so... Again, this is another reason why I have an entire post on artistic license, because there's not going to be a lore explanation for stuff like this. Oh, well, you see, the Unkindled One actually has mastery over time travel and causes people to be frozen in temporal space. Oh, yada, yada, yada. You can come up with your dumb lore explanations. It's bullshit. We all know it. Nothing here, so we can move forward. Again, we see more Dark Wraiths. They are on their way to challenge the Abyss Watchers. This is the perimeter for the wall. Now, let us deal with some of these. Another priest. What? My man just shimmied around the soul arrow. What a god. Or I should say man of god. Well, no more. As we can see, there are these black bug pellets. This is the proof of which they are the Acolyte's descendants. The idea being is that the Acolytes used to make these for the Abyss Watchers by crushing bugs with the dark. We don't know if these are products of the Abyss themselves, or if they're just these bugs which happen to have evolved a protection against the dark for whatever reason. Ooh. Either way, we're just going to avoid you. Either way, the Acolytes clearly made these, and so their descendants, the Grus, now make them. We can hear the Abyss Watchers faintly battling in the background. You are not going to have a fun time, my friend. Like, that is not going to defend you against this tactical nuke. Now, again, we see how the limitations of Dark Souls' gameplay puts on the narrative storytelling. We just see the Abyss Watchers make their way toward the, oh, dang it, one of them spotted us. We see them make their way toward the Abyss Watchers, but they will stop shortly as if they're just waiting for us to kind of kill them before they complete their goal. It would be kind of cool to see Abyss Watchers versus Dark Wraiths. Oh. You can imagine that some Abyss Watchers may have ended up hunting Dark Wraiths, much like Artorias, assuming that those Dark Wraiths tried causing some problems with the Abyss in some town or something. Come on. There we go. There we go. Dang it, no tongue. Darn, what I wanted my 1% chance. Again, more of these swords, adding to the ceremony as they let up. Now, we see this is the Faron Mausoleum. We'll see why it's a mausoleum in due time. Suffice to say, we should prepare ourselves for this fight. Oh, you actually killed the other Dark Wraith, did you? I'm proud of you. Good job. You two idiots made my life easier, killing each other. Let's get the item up there. Let us also get to the Ember. More black bug pellets. Like I said, I want to show off some summons and stuff like that when we get the chance. So, here's our first extremely notable summon, in my opinion, Blackhand Gotthard. Or Godhild in the Japanese. The point being of this guy is that he is one of the Black Hands of Lothric, an assassin, one of their master assassins. We can see how he performs an honorable gesture, by my sword, showing his knightly origins. So this is a very honorable man, despite doing very dishonorable work. But hey, someone's got to do it for the good of king and country, right? Now, Gotthard wields his own twin blades as proof of his work as a knight. He also has a composite bow. Again, much like the Dream Chaser's composite bow gives us the idea of someone with a military background. Someone who has experience more likely than not. And then, of course, his outfit is it's basically the assassin set with extra parts added on. You know, got the cape and the hat and all that to kind of show how he's better than the average assassin. Let's go this way, boyo. Now, you may be wondering, what is a master assassin doing so far away from Lothric? Well, if you haven't noticed, Lothric is in a civil war, and Gotthard is a man on a mission. So we shall be following him on this mission, as first he helps us defeat the Abyss Watchers. Again, notice the pots, giving us the idea that these are perimeter walls, lots of activity has to happen here, so you have supplies and things being moved around. Alright, we can't, not while you're here, buddy. Don't worry, we'll change that. I have a crystal lizard to say hi to. You can see the elegant swordplay, again, as proof of his work as a knight. Now, you can imagine the story of a knight becoming a master assassin, how he sort of goes up the ranks. Maybe he turned undead, maybe not, but in the end he was given a task where he could continue serving his country as a assassin, and eventually he became one of the Black Hand, a role which only goes to the hunters of the Lothric who prove themselves to not only have the skill to survive across multiple generations of kings, but also show the willingness to serve multiple generations of kings. They're not just loyal necessarily to one man, they are loyal to, at least in theory, the country of Lothric, the state of Lothric, the good of Lothric. And so they will follow whoever the king in charge ultimately is, they will continue to follow his will. Oh. Let us remove you already. Oh. Thanks, buddy. I mean, I guess I wanted to do that anyway, but... Wait. Did I just try to attack a crystal lizard with, sorcery? I think I might have made a mistake here. Oh. Thanks, buddy! Gotta take advantage of that one. There we go. Titanite scale acquired. Great magic weapon. Now, great magic weapon, and I think we acquired great magic shield earlier in this playthrough. Oh, no, we get it from another area, that's right. Great magic weapon, of course, is a given to sorcery swordsmen who are tasked with special missions. Now, in Dark Souls 1, these missions had to do with, of course, acquiring particularly powerful or notable sorcery that Vinheim did not know. And we can imagine that the same thing would be true for Faron, whether it has to deal with the Crystal Sage or with the Xanthos Scholars. Regardless, you can imagine that one of these sorcerers would find their way here. Unfortunately, it seems like, whether it be by the Crystal Lizard or some other means, he did not make it. That was I don't have sorcery! I can't have fun! Thanks, buddy. You really pulled your weight there. Let's see if we can get Gotthard to die to a Black Knight. Come on, man, go get him. Oh, well, he got me. Yep. Not what I expected. Oh, that delay swing. I forget how slow you are! If I had sorcery, I would cheese you. Thank God you didn't do the second swing. Should have gone for the second hit, but you walked right into that one, buddy. Alright, now we can continue on. And we all know good Lothric is doing how good Lothric is doing now, thanks to everybody. Yeah. Honestly, if Gotthard just wanted to get out of Dodge, I would totally understand. It'd be like, you know what? I've served my country well, and my country basically destroyed itself. I think I've done everything I can. But nope, the man thinks he can do more. And we will see how exactly he plans to do that. Now, this is our first miracle out in the wild from Londor. Might be even our only one, if I recall correctly, but let's see. This is given to exiles from Londor. Now, the text of the miracle, the scripture that they are provided, supposedly gives them what they believe are words of forgiveness, for, as the localization puts it, cursed journeys too must ultimately come to an end. And they interpret this in the positive light of, oh, it's telling us, we're being exiled for what we did wrong now, but, things are going to work out eventually. So again, they pray the words being like, ah, yes, it's like a ward of protection. When in truth, Londor basically is just like telling them, hey, this spell, which they don't realize, this scripture, which they don't realize has the power to make them gain more attention from surrounding foes. It basically seems to possibly warp their luck or something to that effect. As the Dark is wont to do, and make it where basically they are more likely to die while out in exile. So it's essentially just a cruel type of execution for seemingly just Londor's amusement. At least the upper echelons of the Sable Church's amusement. And again, we see a hollow gem associated with Londor because it is the country of hollows. We're gonna use one of them homeward bones now, because I don't want to risk the basilisks. So again, this is our first example. We can imagine a exile of Londor, you know, just going around, making his way through, and in the end, he ends up stuck on an island surrounded by a bunch of basilisks, and somehow ends up dead. Sucks to be him, I guess.
Well, very then take.
All right. I think I have dumped enough in my intelligence stat to
Farewell, Ashen. May the fleet.
actually no, because I can do a little bit more with souls. Ooh, but do I have what I need now? Oh, I'm still missing one Titanite shard. What gives me a Titanite shard? Does anyone sell them? Patches! Patches, do you sell Titanite shards? I love me some hollow weapon scaling with luck. Yeah, I've never been into the whole luck build thing, but I can imagine it's kind of fun having a thing that lets you get tons of items all the time while also doing crazy damage. Hey, Patches.
Oh, hello again. Welcome to Patch's Boutique of Wonders. Can't resist it, can you? My sumptuous selection.
So much so I had to put an axe through your head. Nope, no luck.
Can't find any.
Nope. Listen, come back with some basic Titanite. We were so close to greatness.
That is what.
Nothing here. Reinforce. Yeah, I think 3 should be enough for Abyss Watchers, right? Between all their phases. Ooh, you're right. Train Handmaid might have some. Though I don't think she gets her first unlimited supply until Shiva's ashes, right? I don't see it. Yeah. Oh no, she sells it. This is the purchase. So yeah, she sells it. So, and it seems to be infinite. So, oh right, because I think Dream Chaser gives you it. That's why. Yeah. So we can buy one.
Ashen one. Well,
Thanks there, Pantere.
Welcome home. Speak.
No, we want to go to Andre for this. And if necessary, we can buy more to upgrade. Let's
That is wasn't it?
reinforce weapon. Yeah, 6 more.
Pretty, I don't.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't cost too much, so I don't mind sacrificing some souls for this. Oh no, we're not going that. We're not that crazy. That's 4,000 souls.
Ashen one. Well,
That is what.
And if I remember correctly, this will let us go to large shards, and then we can do that. Yes. So now we get this, and we can do an upgrade to this weapon, which will come right after, so... Perfect.
Pretty, I don't.
Yeah. Let's actually switch out, because I think now we're at the point where the Blessed... No, it still technically does less damage, but it'll be fine against the skeletons. Anything we want from our buddy here?
Back again, I see. I suppose this means...
Let's give you a sorcery scroll. Let's use golden scroll first. Actually, no, Sage's scroll. Let's keep them in order.
Oh my. This is stupendous. And the undead legion of Farron possesses sorceries quite unknown. Thank you for upholding your end of the bargain. I doubt I ever would have made this discovery alone. Now, let us unravel the thing, so you may put these new sorceries to use.
Now, Obviously, the idea is he's someone who combed the entirety of the Crystal Sages Academy, their library, so he thought he knew everything there was to know about Faron sorcery at this point. We just proved that that wasn't true, because he didn't know about Hazel and her situation. As we can see, the special sorceries that he provides because of this is... we now get Great Faron Dart, again, a more powerful version of Faron Dart, refined specifically for Hazel. Entrusted with the scroll to her dad. We also get Faron Hail. Again, something that the Crystal Sage... It seems to be more so less a refinement and more of a downgrade from his Crystal Hail spell that he uses, basically being like, okay, well, she won't necessarily be able to learn the crystal stuff, so let's just let her learn a basic non-crystal version of this. And then Faron Flash Sword, of course, a faster Faron weapon, just like basic stuff that would be useful for her to know at that point. Then we get because we've now proven ourselves to be good people who will help him as we promised, Orbeck takes promises very seriously, so he rewards us with one of the spells from his spook days. Now remember, he hasn't outed himself as a spy per se, he's just alluded to it. So this is already a huge admission for his part, because the spies are never supposed to reveal themselves. That's sort of part of their training, right? That's part of the job. And he sort of... obviously, after everything that's happened to him in his past, he's sort of being willing to kind of like put it all away to kind of build a bond here as a teacher and student. He gets to finally be a not just a true student of sorcery, but an actual teacher of sorcery, something he could never have imagined when he was back in Vinheim. This spell has changed somewhat. I do not recall exactly the reason why. It used, but it's basically, I think I recall the only thing really changed is the fact that it is now referred to, as a white, refers to as like a white mist instead of, I think, being like something like a silver mist or a mercury mist, or actually, I think it was just called mercury before, right? So, interesting to keep in mind why the developers decided to change that. But again, same idea we have is that it creates this mist which, anyone who stands in it is going to basically die. Now, it does create the question of, if you're like an assassin and you're creating cover to want to kill them, do you really want to risk poisoning yourself for this thing? But again, gameplay. Do we want to start giving Irina tomes? No, let's go further along here, because I haven't decided if we're going to go the corrupt route or not with her. Actually, you know what? Let's actually give her the good tomes at least, and then we can decide whether or not we want to take her down the dark path or not.
Oh, champion of Atlas.
Yes. Let's give you a brain tome. We'll give her a basic Kareem tome.
Oh, you've brought me a Braille Divine Tome. Now I can tell new tales of miracles. Tales of the greater miracles can be quite the epics.
I'm sure.
What fun we will have.
Now, she's alluding to how the longer a miracle is, the more powerful the miracle's effect, technically. Again, obviously, if you abridge a story, there's less details going into that story, less telling you the event. It gives you less of a clear picture of what's going on, so when you're not having that mental image as strong, it becomes harder to kind of wrap your convictions around it as being like, this is true, regardless of you actually, being there and having borne witness to it personally. And thereby manifesting the power. So again, when you abridge the miracle, again, it ends up, when you abridge the miracle text, the scripture, it weakens the power of the corresponding miracle. And when you have super long epics, these tend to have incredibly powerful miracles behind them. In this case, she teaches us, I think this is the one that gives us replenishment. So again, Cleric Knights. Which again, associated with Lloyd's Faith, but again, no longer a thing. I think Caressing Tears is again another basic stuff because Keitha's now in charge. We also, of course, see Medium Heal, which gives us the idea of a weaker... oh no, this is the stronger version, right? So I'm thinking of the basic heal that Shrine Handmaid gives us. Yeah, so the idea is that this is a slightly stronger version. This is, of course, the basic one that clerics learn. And then Tears of Dial, again, Keitha. Homeward, again, this is more advanced Kareem Miracle, so far as it allows them to basically kind of come home, but because we're undead and our mindset is kind of warped by the fact that we're cursed, we don't have a home really to return to anymore, we go to the bonfire because now that is basically our home. And then finally, of course, Force, we all know, again, Shockwave, basic thing for our clerics, nothing too crazy. And then, what else? Okay, we can also give her the Break Bone, but we don't want to do that.
Have a pleasant journey.
Yeah.
I pray for your safety.
This should get...
Champion of Attitude.
Alright, so that should get Aegon at least a little bit interested in us. I think this is where we can make a deal with him, so... Let's try reloading the area, see if that does it, or... he'll show up on his own. The problem is I don't remember where he spawns in, so let's just reload the area. I could have swore he showed up where Henri would be. But again, I may be misremembering things. Yeah, maybe misremembering. Okay then, I think then we covered everything we really need to do. Let's check his dialogue real quick.
If you seek power, the lands of the lords converge upon Lothric. The home of pyromancy's drifts comparatively close as well. At least, that is what pyromancers of the Great Swamp believe. The place is called Izalith. Oh, how I wish to behold a primal pyromancy. Well, these are old tales. No one knows where the truth begins or ends.
Oh, so that's how Homeward works. That makes a whole lot more sense. Yes, it's the same thing with the Homeward bones, too. The idea is that the corpse who we loot the bones from, they are undead whose bones are infused with this emotion, again, because the soul is the source of thought, life, consciousness, all these things. So that's where emotions come from, and this is why curses can also manifest from living things, like we see with the Crowmen and the Grus and such, is this idea that these undead, they're caught in a situation where it's like, I just want to go home, and then they die there. So naturally, now those sentiments left in their souls and their bodies gets infused into the bone, and then we just take the bone and we use it as we kind of draw out that power to use for ourselves from their soul. And it apparently gets used up once, but it effectively allows us to teleport back to our home, quote unquote, the bonfire. So it's kind of ironic, right? They couldn't make themselves do it, but we're able to kind of borrow their souls in death in order to do it ourselves.
If you seek
yeah, okay. Now, a bunch of points being made here. Again, another reference to how the Lothric is a land where the lands of the Lords of Sindir, quote unquote, converge or drift. And then the idea is that the homeland of pyromancy has also drifted here, namely Izalith. And that it's a story that's basically gone around the Great Swamp. It's gone back to the Great Swamp, so Izalith ends up drifting to Lothric, like many of the other lands. The result is that story somehow starts seeping in from how this, because again, this place is underground, so you can imagine it might take a while for people to find it, realize it, word gets around, etc. But eventually, that word spreads around and ends up in the Great Swamp, where it becomes a rumor there. Now, no one can obviously confirm or something like that, but a bunch of pyromancers, when they're leaving the Great Swamp, particularly when, they're undead and they're exiled because of it, they'll start looking for the land of pyromancy here. And obviously, if they find it, they're never gonna go back home and tell anybody about it, right? So it's like, it ends up staying as rumor. But Cornix, at least, is familiar with these rumors, and he's sort of kind of letting us know that, okay, like all these different lands are here, Izalith is said to be one of them. Now, fun fact, Izalith is actually a localization of itself, not the name itself. It's actually pretty accurate, but the pronunciation should be something like Izalith, because it's a portmanteau of Izanami, the Japanese Shinto goddess of life and death. She was responsible for birthing many of the gods. She ultimately died after giving birth to the god of fire, Kagusuchi, if I recall correctly. At which point she then became the lord of the underworld, and ended up sort of driving out her husband when he came to rescue her, because he looked back and saw her ugliness, which after she told him specifically not to. So there's a lot of different individual parallels to varying degrees to the Witch of Izalith in this case. Now, the last part, instead of Izanami, it comes Lilith. Obviously, famous character in Jewish mythology relating to being like this this explanation for the seemingly second Eve that supposedly exists in the biblical scripture, and the idea being is that, okay, well, she ended up becoming the mother of demons, right? So again, ties back to Izalith very well. But yeah, it's kind of funny how sort of Izarisu for Izalith sort of ends up getting pronounced in the recording booth as Izalith, and it's sort of stuck. Why exactly do lands drift toward the first flame? Because the drift in Dark Souls 3, and it started in Dark Souls 2, but it gets codified explicitly in Dark Souls 3, is an extension of the idea Solaire presents. Now, Solaire doesn't say that the flow of time is convoluted, in the sense that, oh, it's so complex, we can't understand how the flow of time is. This timeline is so worked, like, oh, I can just justify all my terrible theories by just saying it's convoluted anyway. No, the point is that the flow of time is stagnant. Again, much like how stagnation is such a huge theme in Dark Souls 3, it originates back in Dark Souls 1. This idea that the flow of time has stagnated. Now, why does the flow of time stagnate? And why is it only happening in Dark Souls 1, Lordran, then Drangleic in Dark Souls 2, and now finally in Lothric in Dark Souls 3? The idea being is that we're in a time bubble, which causes the flow to be kind of winky-wonky, and that allows people from different time periods to kind of intersect with each other randomly. The problem this causes for the area, and just in this area where the first flame happens to be, is because light is time. So, again, think of it conceptually. Abyssal Archive will go into this in more detail. The idea that when you see, how do you recognize how the world has changed, right? You can see it. The light that allows you to be able to witness this world lets you see the changes, right? Because as that light moves, as it advances and progresses, you see the shadows change. Again, this is sort of the idea of there's light and thus there is dark. The dark creates shadow, which gives us an idea of space. So dark has dominion over space, light over time, though they end up kind of crisscrossing because, again, time and space are inexorably intertwined. You have this idea that dark sort of gives us an idea of space, light gives us an idea of time, and so therefore, as the first flame wanes, as the light of the fire weakens, so too does the flow of time, which has been in this easy to understand linear format. And as the Age of Fire has continued past its expiration date, and the first flame has been forced to continue in this stagnant state, the stagnation has gotten worse upon the world, and it's now advanced. So no longer is it just, okay, people from different times are meeting in the same people from different times are meeting in the same space. Now we have instances of spaces from different times are now coming together. So for example, what we see, or well, I should say now we have multiple spaces just literally kind of like folding into each other. So again, this is the idea of, okay, well, Lothric is where the first flame goes. It brings with it parts of Drangleic, much like how in Drangleic, parts of Lordran came over there. And so it mixed with Drangleic, and that's why we see the mix of cultures, and it strained a bunch of people which created their own societies, which were completely independent from the original phase because they can't get in contact with their gods on the other side of the planet. Again, this is why I refer to Dark Souls 2 setting as the New World and Dark Souls 1 setting as the Old World. Again, think of it like, imagine if, like, I don't know, the Vatican City suddenly warped all the way into the middle of the North America. Like, suddenly, like... like, there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna have to be changed to rebuild and, like, kind of reorient in this brand new world you're in, right? So the idea being is that Dark Souls 3 shows us, okay, Lothric is somewhere in between the Old World and New World. Like, New World is up north, Old World is presumably then down south. The idea being is that it sits right in the middle, so therefore, when the first flame goes there, it's close enough to both parts of the planet, so that way it can start bridging the gaps now and allow the two worlds to reconnect and create the setting as we know it now, where like everything is sort of like a mix here. But now you have parts of both Lordran and Drangleic being brought over to Lothric, and then on top of that, you got now the idea that these lands from all over the world are randomly being basically dragged in through time and space and kind of intersecting with the existing land that is there, and sort of creating these new, like, sort of having these new lands which sort of become drift and stagnate, again, stagnation, around the country of Lothric. Yeah, I understand what the translators are trying to go for with convoluted. They want to use its lesser-known secondary meaning of, like, something which is, like, extremely folded and complex and things like that in terms of, like, layered. And I get what the idea is, because, again, I would use the same imagery of if the flow of time is stagnant, it's like if you have a river hitting a brick wall, suddenly all that quote-unquote line of a river is going to start stacking on top of each other, right, in, like, different quote-unquote layers. So I get what they were trying to go for. The problem is convoluted is a vocab term that most people will know for its primary definition, and that's how most people in the English community have interpreted it. And it's resulted in so many people basically just brushing off extremely bad theories by just saying, well, time is convoluted. It's been a huge detriment to the English community in terms of lore hunters, and it's very sad because, again, the reason I'm coming out with Abyssal Archive is because Dark Souls 1 got a localization it definitely did not deserve in the year it came out. It should not have happened, period. Same thing with Demon Souls, but you could at least justify that, oh, not enough people played Demon Souls. Well, a lot of people ended up playing Dark Souls, and the localization learned from that by improving dramatically from that point onward. They still, and from what I see with Elden Ring, it's mostly okay. There's problems, don't get me wrong, but like, for how big the game is, it could have been a lot worse. Alright, we've had our wonderful little side, so to finish things up, we're going to start dealing with the Abyss Watchers and close things out. What do we got with our souls that we... Yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything with these, so may as well prepare for the fight. Now, the Abyss Watchers, as everyone knows, are fighting amongst themselves. They're basically committing sort of ritual seppuku with each other. Now, obviously, when they must have gotten some idea that Faron has gone silent for a while, and at the very least, Lothric does not know what's going on. Again, imagine the Dream Chaser is presumably someone from Lothric, like the Handmaid, and therefore someone who didn't necessarily know how bad things were in Faron. So the idea is that you have this poison-rotted forest. Things don't look too good in Faron anymore. So, what are they to do? They're gonna come in and investigate. They see how bad things are, how terribly things have collapsed, and then they're gonna be sad about it. They're gonna be like, "Wow, we inadvertently destroyed our entire civilization." And you'd be like, "Well, why? How was them becoming Lords of Cinder destroyed everything?" Well, as we said, the Lycanthropes seem to have shown up. And the Lycanthropes appear to have been the Abyss Watchers who remained behind. They're the ones who took the wolf blood. So they have some of the wolf's soul within them, flowing through their veins in the form of blood, its medium. So, as a result of these souls existing inside of them, they all share a bond with the wolf. Now, this has tons of benefits, right? It made them stronger. It allowed them to gain some of that strength that the old wolf had, to the extent that they were able to do things that normally they would not be able to. There was, it allowed one to empower their abilities, right? And they were able to organize all of Fire and Keep as a result of this ritual through the blood. Well, as soon as the fire linking happened, the wolf blood dried up because the wolf got emaciated. He suddenly get drained. Well, it makes sense, right? Because when you have this wolf who has this soul, which is connected, which has pieces of it, he was never formally killed, right? It wasn't like he was separated. He just they spilled a little of his blood, his still living blood, and then drank it. So they are essentially, in many ways, that bond between his soul is still there. It's still connected, even if it is physically separated. And the result is that they are all still connected to the wolf. So when all these Abyss Watchers link the fire all at once, because only them together were powerful enough to be worthy of a Lord of Cinder, ironically, because of that same connection, that ended up putting an extra strain on the old wolf that they didn't suspect. As a result, the old wolf became emaciated. His blood is clearly not drained because of that emaciation. Like, there's just not enough being produced. And it's obviously because his soul is so focused on fueling the first flame. It's just too much of a burden. Again, we see what happens when Gwyn links the fire. It turns him into basically a zombie. Now, the Abyss Watchers don't have to deal with that problem as badly because of the specifics of Lothric's system. They're buried separately from the Soul of Cinder, so it's not like they are taking all the burden on themselves. But it's clear that a whole bunch of it ended up being shouldered by the Old Wolf, and the Old Wolf ended up basically being unable to provide extra blood because there was barely enough keeping it alive. This resulted in a huge issue by itself. So they can't exactly get new Abyss Watchers. Well, it's okay. They have the existing ones, so they can manage until then. Well, no. Well, because it seems that in linking the fire and agitating the blood is so, the power of the Old Wolf blood inside of the others ended up being sort of roused in a way similar to what we see in Bloodborne with beasts, where the soul of the Old Wolf, perhaps because it's going through such suffering and pain, or you can come up with various specific reasons. I would love to hear different ideas in the future. The blood ends up basically causing them to become more monstrous, and we see how it becomes such a greater influence that they start getting sharper teeth, sharper claws. If we want to not interpret as artistic license, larger bodies. Basically, they become more wolf-like all around, and the final result of this is the lycanthrope hunters coming out. So the Academy people go in hiding. The acolytes who become the Gru's, who are the Gru's ancestors, I should say, go into Faron Keep to deal with it. The rest hide inside their place while the common staff deal with it outside, and everything ends up falling apart. Faron sees the Abyss Watchers, who are Lords of Cinder, see this. They come back and they're like, well, this is all our fault, basically. So they end up trying to do this ritual suicide. Only there's a problem. They can't kill themselves, because as we already established, they're all connected. And much like how we see in Dark Souls 2 with the bond between the Man-Scorpions, Tark, and Najka, the Abyss Watchers are completely unable to kill one of themselves, or kill all of themselves, without the others, the other that, quote-unquote, would stay alive, is coming back, and dragging the other one back to life. So it ends up being this kind of weird system where they're kind of caught in a net and they can't untangle themselves so they need an outside force to come in and sort of sever them separately, someone who's not connected into this little network they've got here. Well, how are they going to... how are we going to deal with the... how are we going to deal with this issue? Well, they're just going to end up killing each other endlessly in a never-ending gauntlet. And the point will be is that, well, when we show up, as we can see, many other have already fallen, but they're just going to come back up shortly. We just happen to be seeing two more in this free-for-all, finishing them off. Again, this is the last one standing. He won't be the last one for long, but he notices that we have now entered the scene. And he starts doing the gesture of the Abyss Watchers. This seems to be kind of like their call sign. And it's a way to show how he is basically respectfully asking for a duel of honor between us and him. If we are victorious, we will essentially prove ourselves as heroes who are worthy of the mantle for Lord of Cinder, and we will be able to prove that they can finally rest easy, knowing that they have they can finally stop endlessly forcing themselves to suffer needlessly. Oh yeah, this is gonna be I played this careful. This fight is gonna be a cakewalk. All right, buddy should be getting up. Ah, dang it! Dodge rolled too early. Now, the Abyss Watchers will always target us when it's just the two of them, but then the third one, when he eventually spawns, will in fact be a neutral party who will attack anyone. So it's, again, gets into this idea of a actual free-for-all. Oh, whoopsie, I didn't want to do that. The purpose of this incident is to highlight again how they don't care who ends up victorious in the end. If we win, great. If we don't, whatever. They're just going to give it all they got. We see how they fight much like a wolf. They draw up clouds. They use a small knife like a talon or teeth. The greatsword, of course, is the Artorias aspect. So they end up sort of incorporating different moves from the old wolf that they learned when it was still, you know, not an emaciated invalid. Oh, there we go. There's our red boy. Now you may notice that, of course, to indicate that this enemy is a third party and isn't on the same side as the others, he has glowing red eyes. Some have interpreted this as him having the pus of man. We talked about this in the last stream, however. This is highly unlikely given the circumstances and the situation. And the red eyes can just be used to indicate more powerful enemies, as well as when an enemy is has some unique mechanic or factor to it, or just, you know, artistic reasons, like, you know, that enemy has glowing red eyes because it is the pus of man, or what have you, second phase to a boss or something. Oh, yeah, I'm not worried about you. Oh, he killed him for me. Thanks, buddy. I thought some of them went nuts because of the abyss. Never thought it could have been because of their wolf blood. Yes, it is because of that's again the name lycanthrope in Japanese literally means wolf possessed. The lycanthropes we see are possessed by the wolf, or more specifically, its blood, or more specifically, its soul. That they drank with the blood that's inside of them, and its influence has basically taken them over. Basically, it got stronger, whereas the old wolf got weaker, ironically. Now, as we can see, all the blood of the wolf and themselves has been dragged into one body. So now they are truly legion. They are all fighting as one entity, one singular soul, because in the end, what makes them special is that singular soul of the old wolf. Oh. Oh. Oh, I should have waited. That was a delayed attack easily. I should not have done that. That was dumb. Come on, buddy. Ah, crap, nuts. Ooh. That was a fail on my part too. Oh, that was so close. I've done this fight so many times, so I'm kind of used to that spacing, but man, does it get close sometimes. God, I love this fight. Even as like a sorcerer here, it's just it's still an enjoyable battle. Oh, dang it. Ah, darn. He ducked it. Beautiful music, too. Ooh. Oh, thank God he dodged. If he did anything else, that could have been the end of it. Gotta be careful. Dang it. Ooh, he's dodging a lot of his attacks, though. That's unfortunate. Again, another example people try to make of the idea they're corrupted by the Abyss is the fact that their armor is covered in Abyss splatterings, but again, they fight the Abyss, of course there's going to be these splatterings. If it was such a concern, why do we see even the regular armor left behind by the old wolf have this stuff? We also don't really have much opportunity for them to be corrupted by the Abyss either before or after turning into Lords of Cinder. Again, there are plenty of other ways for them to handle this, especially as the DLC reveals. Keeps ducking it. But oh well, it's just a few more attacks and we got him. Whew! Ooh, I went too early. Slightly too early. Let's get some... Oh, dang it. Right. Gotta play it careful. There we go. Rest King. Now, again, as we established... Gosh, I gotta get this right one of these days! Soul of the Wolf's Blood. So again, the reason why they were able to become Lords of Cinder is through the power of this wolf blood, and specifically the soul of the wolf blood's master. Now, this could be interpreted as the owner of the wolf blood, i.e. the old wolf, but as we'll see in other item descriptions, there is reason to believe this is elsewhere. I'm going to save it for then. Oh, that's so cool. I never knew about that JP term. Well, I'm glad that I'm able to teach you a little bit on that regard. So, let's see, what else do we got in that situation? Okay, so we have the Cinders. Again, it is through the wolf blood that they were able to get the qualification to be Kings of Kindling, Lords of Cinder. So, again, we see this. Now, this mausoleum is where the ritual to perform the wolf blood was taken. Now, we only get a very brief look at this pig brew, because if we get too close, it will move away on its own. But there is this understanding... There is this idea that, okay, you imagine you take the blood from the wolf, you put it in the goblet, the prospective new Abyss Watcher comes in, he drinks from the chalice, and then once that is done, he now has been empowered by the wolf blood and can be welcomed into the Abyss Watchers, because now he's fully ready in order to learn all their techniques, their weapons, and all that stuff. Unfortunately for Hawkwood, that didn't seem to work out for him, and he ended up deserting. But and one key aspect that we see here is that the area would pull back and allow the new Abyss Watcher inducted to walk down and have a look at the catacombs of Karthus. Now, not much to look at from up here, and this is, of course, one of the worst designed areas in the game. I would even argue the worst. I mean aesthetically, by the way. It's not the best gameplay-wise either, but it's got a little bit going for it. But yeah, it's a little bit too much copy-paste for my taste. Loki, have you ever thought about why the dark sign in the sky is not present at the end of the Ring City DLC? It makes me wonder whether the DLC takes place before or after the Soul of Cinder. I have devoted some thoughts to it. And I have a few ideas in regards to why, at least it's not obviously there, right? Because it is a bit cloudy, but it definitely has that same feel as if it's a normal sun and not sort of the eclipse that we've been accustomed to up until that point. So there is a few bits that you can sort of think about. One idea is, of course, it's just, well, you know, it's just for style or whatever. It's like, maybe, but I don't know. It's worth at least considering that there might be more going on there. And it's not that they were just thinking about how the cinematic lit things rather than how it necessarily should look with the eclipse and all that. Anyway, the idea being is that Karthus, we end up learning as we progress through next stream, will be a country of dark, which was seemingly destroyed by that same dark. So you can imagine that Faron warriors are basically being shown here, where they have now gone through all the trials and they've proven themselves worthy of becoming a heroic Abyss Watcher, like Artorias before them. And now they're getting a look at what that means to be an Abyss Watcher. You have to now always keep an eye monitoring for the signs of the Abyss, for this is what it does. It destroyed an entire nation that with which Faron has founded its mausoleum upon, to honor those that have fallen. Karthus is literally free real estate for the Abyss Watchers, yes. But unfortunately for our Abyss Watchers, they did not know the detail that the dead country of dead dark nation of Karthus is still very much alive. But that we will be seeing next time. Actually, you know what? Since we have a little bit of time, let's test how our reinforced club, our blessed reinforced club will do here. Let's see what the damage is like. Now's about the time that I need to start. Oh yeah, pretty good. And they're not going to come back to life either. Karthus Roach, yes. Not too important to start off, but we'll talk about that next time. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this. Decent. Yeah, if they found out about Wolnir, like, the calculus would completely change. Again, there is dialogue from Hawkwood which has this idea of, oh, they were even willing to bury an entire country at a single sign of the Abyss, right? I think that line is a leftover. Again, like, it makes sense in the final thing, like, it just shows how extreme the Abyss Watchers are willing to go, right? Like, they would literally bury a whole nation. But considering that we do find an entire nation literally buried, on Faron, I wouldn't be surprised if an earlier idea was that, the Abyss Watchers were founded, the Abyss Watchers kind of established themselves after destroying Karthus, or at the very least they built their modern fort after doing so, rather than the other way around, where the destroyed nation of Karthus drifted over to this place, and then far on, under the forest of Faron, and then the Abyss Watchers just happened to stumble upon it and be like, oh hey, this is the famous country of Karthus, it's destroyed, looks pretty dead, no need to investigate any further. Totally not some king ruling as a tyrant eternally as one of the dead. Totally not. Okay, but again, that's all more lore we can talk about next time. I'm going to change a lot of people's minds, I think, about Karthus, because it's actually a very interesting area when divorced from the fucking copy-paste splurge that is the area itself. So, it's going to be really cool, I think. Nothing else to talk about here except for the misplaced light. Dark Souls 3. Just remember, people, never look up, never look down, never look left, never look right. Only look straight ahead. Oh, and definitely never look back. Believe me, you won't believe what happens if you look back. Just always go forward, wherever Dark Souls 3 points you. Because the moment you don't, well, let's just say, Dark Souls 3 is a perfect game with absolutely zero issues whatsoever. Alrighty, guys, I think this has been an extra long stream for this weekend. I had a lot of fun. It was great hearing from you guys. Some really good questions. Really fun. Faron is such a big, expansive area. Dark Souls 3 looks really good if you don't move the camera. Just be on rails the whole time, then. Oh, perfect. Okay, with that, we're going to end things here. Thanks so much, guys. Bye. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.